The trial proctor watched, completely bored by the endless parade of weak candidates. Then a blur. A lone boy appeared, and in a single, silent strike, 2 goblins vanished. The proctor stared, stunned, as the boy cleared round after round in mere moments. This was impossible. His movements were beyond mastery, a storm of perfect cuts. This challenger wasn't just a prodigy. He was a ghost from a forgotten past. 20 years ago, he was Narukami, the legendary master of the Blue Eyes Guild. He was taken down not by a monster, but by his closest friend of 10 years, Kyojo. During a harrowing battle on the 8th floor, Chojo's jealousy finally boiled over. As Narukami's team fought for their lives, Kyojo made his move from the shadows. He betrayed them all, driven by a bitter hatred of living in Narukami's light. Now, Narukami has returned, reborn in a new body as Subaru, a level 1 nobody. He discovers Kyojo is now celebrated as the world's strongest hunter, his glory built on lies. Though he has nothing, Subaru makes a promise to the heavens. He will crawl his way back to the top and make that traitor remember his name. The ultimate quest for revenge against the most powerful man in the world has just begun. For 10 years, Narukami trusted the blonde-haired Kyojo, even gifting him a legendary item for their upcoming raid. Their shared objective was to finally conquer the formidable 8th floor. But the moment the boss materialized, Kyojo and his cohorts exchanged sinister smiles. An ideal opportunity to dismantle the world's top guild had just presented itself. As Narukami's team was locked in combat and their dedicated healer focused her efforts, the traitorous friend emerged from the shadows behind her. He struck her down without hesitation. But what could drive such a betrayal in a world they were trying to save? 10 minutes later, Kyoji roared that he was tired of their charity. He despised living under the immense shadow cast by Narukami, and he loathed the fame of the #1 Blue Eyes Guild. But that was about to end. Or so the blonde schemer believed, unaware of what was truly unfolding. A lid clattered to the ground. A boy pushed himself out of a garbage bin, wondering aloud if he had returned to Earth. He was now Hasoi Subaru, a mere level 1, haunted by whispers that he was a pale imitation, a loser. Nowhere near the legendary Subaru who had vanished 20 years prior. He checked online and found, to his shock, that the Blue Eyes Guild was still active. He saw posts urging everyone to carry on the will of the fallen hero, posted by none other than Kyojo himself. The target of his retribution was obvious, but he was just a beginner. His adversary now held his former power, plus an extra 20 years of relentless grinding. He made a silent promise to make that snake remember who the true champion was. But how could he possibly challenge the man who now reigned over the entire hunter world? The blonde's envy had taken root long ago during their final battle together. When the boss unleashed its devastating roar strike, Narukami had deflected it with a single, effortless blow. While his companions showered him with praise, Kyojo's resentment only intensified from the sidelines. In that very moment, as he struck down the healer with a grin, Subaru was busy fending off the monstrous boss, completely unaware of the treachery. Looking back, it was clear this was a calculated move, not a spontaneous act of rage. That same man had once been part of Narukami's team, but left, claiming he had a secret plan to gain power. The plan, it turned out, was to eliminate him. So now the question remains, how does a level 1 newcomer take down the most powerful man on the planet? His first step was to find information on the original members of Blue Eyes, starting at his own memorial. With his mask on, Subaru spotted a glowing flower atop the casket. He dashed over, grabbing it, and his breath caught. It was the signature skill of an old teammate. She had used that cyclone ability during the final battle to push everyone to safety. A flicker of hope ignited in him. What if they had survived? But even if they were out there, would they still be his allies? Rushing in without any power was the worst possible move. Before making contact, he had to regain his strength. He focused on enhancing his sword. In 2 days, the player qualification tutorial would open. The one silver lining to Kyojo being alive was the chance to eventually defeat him. His thoughts drifted back to the test day right after he cleared step 49. The chamber began to tremble violently, the floor cracking beneath him. Huga screamed for him to escape. For a second, did he mistake him for the legendary Narukami Subaru? A furious Goblin King emerged, roaring at the sight of its fallen minions. While Baldi urged him to forfeit, the boss charged. Hasoi dropped his sword, scooped up iron nails from a shattered mace on the floor, and expertly flung them straight into the boss's eyes. The massive creature stumbled back, and in that single moment of weakness, Soi moved with a deadly precision. Learned from his striking goth-styled trainer. Honestly, with a partner like that who wouldn't be precise, a strike to the throat and several to the body left the unbeatable king completely overwhelmed. In an instant, it crashed face first to the ground. Hasoi casually retrieved his sword and delivered the finishing blow. He had become the first person to defeat the Goblin King and clear step 50. The thought of such a prodigy being in the tutorial sent a shiver down Subaru's spine. Still, he began to level up incredibly fast and unlock the tutorial shop. He found himself with 2,500 credit points. It was his first time browsing the shop's wares. He could afford several items, and some of them were exceptionally tempting. For instance, there was the nameless Demon Sword, which cost 1,000 points. Subaru was drawn to its power, but its special ability would drain his own life. Another option was the Sacred Sword, Miranda, priced at 1,400 points. This one promised to relieve fatigue, making it a much safer choice than focusing on raw, destructive power. However, Subaru felt that neither option was the perfect solution if he didn't strategize more. As he was weighing his two choices, he was surprised to see that there were other categories of items. He could also purchase the Aegis Charm, which cost 1,400, an artifact that negated all negative effects from items and abilities. Seeing this, he grinned. He didn't hesitate for a moment. He bought the charm, and immediately after, he purchased the Demon Sword. Now he could wield its awesome power without losing any of his vitality. Subaru was quite pleased with his ingenious combination. His bald companion understood the logic, but still seemed perplexed. "I still don't get one thing," he admitted. He asked why Subaru bought the charm, since it might prove useless down the line. Subaru raised an eyebrow, questioning if he truly needed to broadcast every single one of his strategies. Naturally, Hire looked a little offended. In any case, the bald man decided to let it slide this time, acknowledging his place. In the end, Subaru simply reflected on how he never expected that kid to ever become an instructor. He remembered a time long ago when Helger was just a fan who had approached him asking for an autograph. Subaru had bluntly told him he was too busy. The boy, close to tears, begged him and said his name was Hoger. Apparently, the years had not been kind, stealing his hair so young. "Anyway," Subaru said, "I don't want to answer anything else. Let's keep my results a secret." With a hopeful smile, Hoyer promised to shape the boy into a model citizen, and even offered him a spot in the Knights Guild, but Subaru simply said no. Hoyer was stunned. He sputtered about what a golden opportunity the boy was passing up. However, the young man just headed upstairs, leaving the recruiter looking lost and confused. Moments later, on the second floor known as the Starting City, a lively scene was underway with everyone hawking their wares. But Subaru was lost in thought. He'd been given an impossible gift, a second chance to rewrite his story. Having walked this path before, Subaru knew he had to play his cards differently. He owed it to the comrades who were surely waiting for him, and he had a score to settle. In the heart of the city stood a private training facility. There, one could test out new skills or gear, and entry was always free. The receptionist gestured toward training room number 1, but the newcomer requested to use the 5th instead. The old man tried to save the novice from wasting his money, but Subaru was insistent. Thus, he nervously declared that he'd take full responsibility and paid the 50 credits in this establishment. The higher the number, the steeper the challenge, so it was only natural to suggest an easier starting point for a fresh face. However, this was no ordinary beginner. He was well acquainted with the trials of the 5th floor. Upon entering, Subaru took up the new sword, and it hummed in recognition of its true master. All his stats were immediately enhanced, but it came with a cost, draining his vitality and stamina. His greed skill flared to life, temporarily restoring a fraction of his energy. But at level 1, it wasn't nearly enough to offset the weapon's drawback. Then the nameless demon sword began to draw even more from him, granting other boons in return. At one point, the young man felt he was at his breaking point. Without a second thought, he used 10,000 credits to elevate the skill to its 2nd level. Now a rank E ability, it could better counter the sword's downside, though it still consumed a measure of his life force. Once more the young man's attributes surged. Then he dashed off to begin the first tria, throwing himself right into the chamber's traps. After a few short minutes, the receptionist was dozing when Subaru breezed past the front desk. Waking with a jolt, he wondered if he was dreaming, because it seemed as though that same young man had just gone right by him. The receptionist rose, trying to place him, since a mere 10 minutes had gone by. To be certain, he went to room number 5 to knock on the door, and when he heard nothing, he stepped inside. He was more astonished than ever. The room was so utterly demolished, it looked as if an earthquake had torn through it. The following day, Subaru stretched and groaned, feeling as though his whole body had turned to stone. The bright side was that this was a weaker demon sword, because a standard one would have been far more draining. The negative effects had finally subsided, thanks to which Subaru had been able to harness a bit of its power. At his current level, he couldn't even properly hold a true demon sword. The synergy of the skill he acquired with a blade was incredible, and Subaru was already thinking his gamble on greed would also enhance his electric abilities. The challenge was figuring out how to improve it, because after that upgrade, his wallet was empty. His money troubles made Subaru sigh at what a mess he was in. Meanwhile, a person on the street was telling his viewers that he was feeling a great sense of nostalgia being back in this place. He was the streamer who, upon receiving 1,000 credits, Subaru's fresh start was immediately soured by the appearance of Isaac, his predecessor's tormentor. The bully swaggered over, mocking Subaru for surviving the tutorial. A flood of inherited memories revealed the truth. Isaac's cruelty was the reason he'd awakened in a heap of trash. Isaac bragged about hitting level 20, flashing a rare rank B skill and boasting about his powerful father. Expecting the usual submission, he demanded Subaru fetch him snacks and coffee, but the fear was gone. Subaru stood his ground, his voice low and firm, telling the thug to back off. Stunned by this sudden spine, Isaac masked his shock with a cruel laugh and a whispered threat, before finally leaving. This world offered 2 paths to power: the slow, safe tower challenges, or the perilous dungeons where the stakes were absolute. Subaru, now standing deep within a treacherous orc lair, had already made his choice. He would risk it all for true strength. There, he heard a bully mocking him, wondering how a loser ever passed the tutorial. The bully confessed he'd been hoping the goblins would take care of Subaru before he awakened in the trash. The original owner of this body, he realized, had been severely mistreated. A punk named Isak said he did it because the boy was worthless and his name was irritating. The boy hadn't even had enough credits to perform the tasks he was ordered to do. When he tried to explain his situation, he was answered with a kick to the gut. Isak then tore open a bag of food and commanded the boy to live in the dump, warning of consequences if he left. These sudden, painful memories explained exactly why he had awoken surrounded by garbage. At that moment, Isak began bragging that he had already made it to level 20. He proudly announced that he was the son of the great Reinhardt. He also showed off a B rank skill, the highest one could possibly acquire in the tutorial phase. Subaru simply offered a bland compliment and prepared to depart. But the arrogant blonde then ordered the hero to buy him a coffee and some snacks. When Subaru failed to react, Isak's face began to flush with anger. He practically screamed, asking if the boy had lost his mind for not obeying instantly. As if Subaru had any credits to his name, Isak gestured for him to sit, but our hero had zero interest in settling someone else's score. He tried to walk away, but a blonde dude grabbed him. "You want to find out what happens when I'm ignored?" Isak snarled. Subaru shot back, "Let go if you want to keep that arm." The blonde, sea-thing hissed that Subaru was getting way too bold. Subaru just knew he couldn't cause a scene here. But then the guy just burst out laughing. "Are you shaking? You know, you're just a weakling, don't you?" He sneered. "I bet you barely avoided getting zeroed out in the tutorial." "Even though I'm feeling generous," he warned, "I can make you vanish without a trace anytime I want." He sauntered off, telling his companion to take care, which only annoyed Subaru more. In this world, players had two paths to power. The first was tackling challenges in the tower for rewards. It cost credits, but at least you wouldn't get eliminated, just a little poorer. The second path? Hunting beasts in the wild or clearing special dungeons. It was way faster, but the stakes were real. If you got wiped out there, it was game over for good. Which is why Subaru was now in the Orc dungeon, a seriously risky spot for model. Greater peril always meant juicier loot on his player kit. Subaru scanned the newsfeed again. Some clown named Nerogami Subaru was broadcasting to 80,000 viewers as he tackled the 4th floor. The chat confirmed this was his 8th failed attempt, seeing an imposter with a nearly identical name. And his signature mask just ticked Subaru off. Suddenly, a donation of 20,000. Credits popped up, prompting a quick thanks from the streamer. He realized you could even send challenges to streamers. 3 more viewers piled on with their own quests. Things like, "Show us you're not a fake." A wave of envy washed over the real Subaru, making him shake. While he was out here facing actual danger, this knockoff was raking in cash. Effortlessly, the irritation flared up again. Subaru stared at the stream for another moment, but then he shot to his feet, ready to get back to work. Yanked his blade from the orc he'd stashed it in, bracing himself as a fresh horde charged forward. Leading them was the orc general, the biggest and baddest of the bunch, though this time he lacked his toxic quills. "I've got something even better," Subaru smirked. The demonic blade began to siphon, his own life force supercharging his stats. He vaulted over the grunts, shouting, "No time for you," and blasted toward the general like a lightning bolt. In a flash, he was at the beast's head, and an instant later, his sword carved a perfect arc. The dungeon was cleared, not one to miss an opportunity. He snagged an ancient mask. Playing the part of the hero might be a great way to earn some credits. He slipped on the mask, figuring he'd just stick to what he was good at. After all, in a sea of impersonators, he was the one and only Subaru. Meanwhile, at Sin Entertainment, a girl watched as Narukami started a broadcast. Suddenly, she let out a furious scream. That sent her coworker flying out of his seat. She couldn't believe that 5 players had just failed a simple dungeon. "What's the big deal?" her friend asked. "The first clear was only worth 1,000 credits," she explained. That some new streamer named Subkichi had botched the whole run, probably another wannabe trying to cash in on the hero's name, while the original was nowhere to be found. This was her job, but the streaming scene was a wasteland. Everyone was just copying Subaru. It drove her crazy watching these clueless players get into trouble without a grasp of the fundamentals. Her coworker then asked why she ever quit climbing the tower to take a desk job. After a moment, she just said it. Got boring. Not that he had much room to talk. He was a quitter too. He recalled she'd only started climbing to find Narukami and then promptly lost all interest. Her thoughts were interrupted when she yelled, "Whoa! This new kid is amazing!" But when they saw he was also wearing the signature mask, they both nearly collapsed. "Why are you even watching a crummy stream from the second floor?" her friend wondered. She confessed that she couldn't help but get a little curious whenever that mask appeared. "And by the way," she added, "you owe me 1,000 credits for losing that bet." Back at the tower, Subaru eyed the entrance to the second floor. It didn't look like much. Still, the knowledge of having an audience put him on edge. A user named Luoni typed in chat, asking if this was his first run. Subaru confirmed it was. The viewer advised that he should probably focus on the dungeon instead of streaming, but it was too late. A bat was already swooping in. A beast lunged forward, but Subaru casually intercepted it, planting its face firmly on the floor. He glanced over and asked, "See? Nothing to worry about." His one goal: clear this place solo. When a viewer voiced her concern, he politely brushed it off, explaining his preference for self-reliance. This wasn't about being greedy. It was about genuine growth. Naturally, the audience thought he was in over his head, but his wild claims were certainly pulling in viewers. In his first official match, a creature snapped at his ankles. With a flash of his blade, it was over. "Time to speed things up," he declared. After dispatching a mud brute for a couple of points, a swarm of giant bats descended, only to be taken out in a single, fluid arc. The viewers were left utterly speechless, not having seen a thing. Those bats earned him another 2 points, the brute 4. "If you just listen," he explained to the stunned chat, "you can tell exactly where they're coming from." His demonstration, however, was far from over. He craved more. He wanted to rack up as many points as he possibly could. The chat debated whether he was a genius or about to get flattened. He then arrived at what looked like the bat's central nest. As the horde noticed his presence, his viewers' panic spiked. A message popped up, a mission for 100 credits if he could eliminate them all. Though most assumed it was a prank, Subaru happily accepted the challenge. At the streaming headquarters, a manager demanded to know why his colleague was so fixated on one obscure channel she didn't even look up. Completely mesmerized by the hero on her monitor. "What's so special about him?" he pressed. She simply replied, "He's different." It wasn't about his popularity or potential earnings. She had been captivated by his performance from the very start. The manager was confused, but it was undeniable. This streamer was single-handedly dominating. Her peculiar habit of watching masked players had finally unearthed a true gem. In the past, Subaru was legendary for his unwavering composure. His breathing and focus never faltered, even in the tightest spots. To onlookers, his style seemed almost psychic, as if he knew what was coming next. When questioned, the hero himself seemed puzzled by his own talent, needing it explained that his abilities were anything but normal. Even Shigeru found it uncanny until Subaru finally understood his own method. It was all about eye contact. It was how he made all his split-second reads. The one-eyed bats had a simple, predictable lunge. He used their straightforward attack pattern to line them up perfectly. To his audience, his explanation sounded as obvious as, "You move your feet to walk." Afterwards, Luvani gently nudged him not to forget about the credits he'd earned. He fumbled with the interface, staying completely silent for an uncomfortably long time. Finally, he confessed, "I don't know how to accept them." The chat erupted in disbelief at his cluelessness, as Lu patiently walked her hero through the menu, his level, and heading for his goal. Meanwhile, at a design company, a girl squealed with joy. "This is so intense," she cried, a huge grin on her face. When her friend complained, she shot back, "Have you ever seen anything so incredible?" He pointed out the second floor was no cakewalk. But the girl insisted that didn't make our hero any less brilliant. She was completely starstruck, wondering if it was fate, even jokingly guessing that maybe he was the reincarnation of the legendary Neurocodme Subaru. The girl was practically floating just thinking about him. But her friend, Saigon, cut in before she could hatch a plan to go find him, which was, of course, exactly her plan. But Sean was all business. If we bring this to the boss, he cautioned, we'll just get an earful. They bickered for a moment, but Lou relented, for now as she was glued to the hero's live feed. At last, Subaru reached the dungeon's heart. This was the final chamber. He touched the massive gates, and they swung open on their own, revealing a colossal creature slumbering within. It was the warrior wolf, Greg, the guardian of this floor. The mission was to earn the wolf's respect through a trial. The system never said to take him down. He was a protector, but someone had posted a 3,000 credit bounty for the wolf's defeat. For someone like Subaru, that kind of money was a life changer, which gave him pause. Just then, the beast stirred. It rose slowly from the stone floor and spoke. You came all this way alone? The wolf's deep voice rumbled. See for yourself, Subaru replied calmly. Greg chuckled, a low growl. Interesting. You carry the scent of a true fighter. The warrior tribe could read a person's very soul just from their scent. In a flash, the wolf guardian granted Subaru passage. But Subaru stopped. Sorry, he said. You're actually my target, Greg. The wolf blinked, utterly confused, as Subaru explained the quest he was on. Greg's keen nose picked up the scent of destiny, and he understood. Meanwhile, at the office, two staffers approached their boss, John Tale, who was busy at his computer. He glanced up. So, what are our streamers' numbers looking like? Around 20, Sage Shilly mumbled. Actually, it's over 30, Love chirped proudly. 30, the boss scoffed. Is this some kind of joke? He turned on Hatsuka, whose real name was Love, chiding her for not scouting a prodigy. Frankly, you have more talent, he grumbled. You should be the one streaming. She tuned him out completely, her eyes glued to the monitor. He just hit 40 viewers live, she announced with a grin. Back in the dungeon, the wolf coiled to strike. Subaru told himself, don't think, just move. He drew his blade. The demon's sword felt oddly calming in his hand, a strange comfort for his first real battle. With blinding speed, the creature lunged, and he barely managed to parry. At the last possible second, Greg's razor-sharp claws shot out, aiming to shred him. The sheer force of the blow pushed him back. This thing was unbelievably strong. He already knew that winning with pure strength was off the table. Luckily, he had another plan, and for now, that meant becoming an unhittable target. You're quick, Greg complimented, but you have no hope of winning. But with perfect timing, Subaru's blade met the monster's claws in a shower of sparks. A perfect defense, but it left him cornered, his back pressed against cold stone. Well, this was a little fun, the beast growled. Now, say farewell. As Greg lunged for the final move, Subaru dove, sliding right under the massive wolf. He'd been mapping the attack patterns, baiting the creature into overextending. The wolf's claws slammed into the wall, getting stuck, and Subaru unleashed a whirlwind of slashes. He didn't stop until a final decisive strike ended the duel for good. With its last breath, Greg offered one final compliment on Subaru's skill before collapsing. A cascade of notifications filled his vision. Skills leveled up and 500 achievement points gained. The viewer chat went ballistic as a 3,000 credit mission reward popped up. With 3,150 credits and 618 achievement points, a new path opened. A shimmering door to the next level appeared. Stepping through, he was met with a dazzling array of choices. 16 distinct elemental paths floated before him, a reflection of his own hidden talent. In his mind, there was only one path that mattered. If he didn't pick Thunder, he might as well have changed his name. He selected his destiny and was whisked away. Back at the office, the atmosphere was electric. The tables had completely turned. 60 people are watching live, Hatsuka shouted, bouncing in her seat. This is incredible. The boss had to concede it was impressive, especially after he vanquished the wolf. Still, he hedged. He's an unknown. Investing in him is a huge risk. That's when Hatsuka laid it all on the line. Let's make a bet, John. If Subaru doesn't conquer the thunder, she declared, my friend and I will work for 5 years. No pay. I am not part of this agreement. Kunin yelped, horrified. But John just smiled. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He knew no one had ever succeeded. But Hatsuka's confidence was unwavering. Fine, John agreed. If he pulls it off, he has a contract. Her hand clamped over her friend's mouth, just as he chose his element. Stepping onto the thunder path, he felt a sudden, sharp tug backward. Watch out, a voice yelled, pulling them both clear just as danger struck. A hulking giant with a massive club now stood exactly where he'd been moments before. The young man who'd saved him shouted, "What are you thinking? Are you trying to get erased?" A system prompt materialized in the air. Defeat the giant fragment. A wave of confusion spread. Why was a creature this powerful in a starter zone? This behemoth was something you'd expect to see in the final stages of the challenge. He had a sinking feeling that dealing with Greg had somehow altered the game script. The giant's club smashed into the ground, but he was already a blur of motion, dodging with ease. That was too close, the other guy stammered, still reeling from the near miss. He ignored him, already calculating the fastest way to end this before they got in his way. He saw an opening as the giant hoisted its weapon for another swing. When the monster's club hit the dirt, he used its massive arm as a launch pad, vaulting high into the air. Soaring toward its head, he aimed his blade for the creature's neck. He plunged his sword in, ending the battle without even breaking a sweat. "Quiet now," he whispered to the crumbling giant. Not that it needed telling. It would now be silent forever. The system chimed, 4th stage cleared. His level shot up, his stats boosted, and he acquired an item called the Giant's Heart. The kid who had tried to save him stared in disbelief, his expression mirrored by everyone watching the broadcast. The young man's frantic tone quickly shifted to one of pure awe. "Who even are you?" he asked. Subaru simply replied, "The one who came to handle the giant." Later in the city, he checked out the buzz on the player kit forums. Everyone was clamoring to see the incredible item he'd won. Figuring he was just as curious, he announced they'd all discover it together, pulling the prize from his subspace. The giant's heart was a rare ring that greatly increased vitality and regeneration. He also received a suit of armor called Thunderclap, which crackled with energy. A viewer named Levukama Subaru donated 5,000 credits for his spectacular display. He offered a quick thanks as a flood of other donations poured in. All the support from the community sparked a newfound determination within him. For the first time, Subaru began to wonder if maybe he was meant for something special. A sudden knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. It was the young man from the trial, now accompanied by a knight in shining blonde armor. "My apologies for the delay," he said. "I've brought the captain of the night village, Celius." They greeted each other, the conversation quickly turning to the escalating giant attacks. The captain explained his knights maintained a constant 24-hour watch. "The citizens are on edge as well, which explains my friend's harsh welcome," he noted. "You protected innocent people in my absence," police said with sincere gratitude. The hero just shrugged. "I only did what had to be done." Pellis was the face of the village, a renowned knight who faced the giant race head-on. He leaned forward and added, "We've located the giant chief, and we intend to risk it all to end this threat once and for all." Then both men bowed deeply, pleading, "Please help us save our village." Even though the story predicted a terrible end for Pellis, Subaru wasn't having it. He promised the young knight his full support to change that fate. Later, as the warriors approached the giant chief's location, Subaru peeked at his player kit. The comments were buzzing and views were through the roof. Suddenly, the knight ordered a halt. Ahead lay the still form of the very giant chief they were hunting. Police offered to be a distraction, but Subaru pulled him back from the reckless plan. Just then, the ground trembled violently. "It's awake," the hero warned. As a colossal monster rose, an entire army of giants burst from the soil. Charging straight for them, the situation felt hopeless as warriors were swiftly captured by the abominations. With monstrous grins, the giants overwhelmed them. "Retreat to the mountain," police roared, trying to snap his men out of their shock. He saw one knight freeze, having just lost his brother to the chaos. "That's an order! Run, think of your families," he commanded. Soon, only Pellis and Falcon were left at the front. Yet the protagonist stood firm, not yielding a single step. "You have to go," the blonde knight pleaded. "Lead the others for another day." "That's my line," Subaru replied calmly. "Why aren't you running?" "I can't fight at full strength if you're here." Pelez couldn't bear leaving a foreigner to face this alone, but Subaru insisted. Relenting, the knight raced off for reinforcements, calling back, "Since I owe you my life, I expect you to come back safe." With all eyes on him, Subaru didn't wait to be cornered. "I'll be your opponent," he bellowed, darting forward. He instantly disabled one giant at the legs, then pivoted to strike down another. In a flash, two were vanquished, making the horde pause. This might be a trial, but Subaru refused to be left behind. As Paleza ran, he felt a surge of anger at himself for fleeing. Back on the field, Subaru knew this was his chance to save everyone. He took down two more beasts in a single, fluid strike. His sword swung relentlessly, sending another creature flying. With each blow, his demonic blade seemed to hum with absorbed energy. Feeling his own stamina wane, Subaru knew he had to end it. He began running, using the forms of fallen giants as stepping stones, clearing a direct path to find the chief. He was determined to rewrite their story. The protagonist's chat lit up, his audience in disbelief at his courage. He was more than a player. He was a hero. With every powerful swing, he carved out a new destiny. The energy pulsing from his sword was a spectacle. He moved with purpose, focused only on his goal. The path ahead was perilous, but his resolve was unshakable. He would find the chief and end this nightmare. He vaulted over lesser creatures, using another as a springboard without pause. Subaru bounded from one giant's head to the next, his gear keeping him tireless. He desperately searched for the leader, and through sheer luck, he finally spotted him in the chaos. The chief looked thrilled at the chance to defeat our hero. A wave of urgency washed over Subaru. If he didn't end this, now he'd be finished. As the beast ready to strike, he put all his hope into one move. With a snap of his fingers, Subaru unleashed his armor's thunderclap ability. The blast staggered the giants, but the sound drove them into a frenzy. They all began to flail wildly. Even the boss was caught in the confusion. The hero leaped toward him, seizing the moment to drive his sword into the giant's weak spot. The move was so swift, the creature had no time to react. It simply toppled backward as a notification declared Subaru's victory. The protagonist's stats soared and the chat exploded with astonishment. Subaru thought that in a typical story, the hero would strike a cool pose now. But a storm was gathering and his energy-restoring perk was no longer working. Even with the stage clear, the monsters weren't going to vanish until the exam concluded. Moving forward now was a risk the hero wasn't prepared for, having nearly been overcome. However, since Stage 5 was complete, the sky split open and a colossal black thunderbolt descended upon Subaru. Everything seemed to happen at once. In a distant cabin, deep in the woods, Rina was glued to the player's feed. "What's so interesting?" Shigira asked, startling her. "Just enjoying the breeze," Rina mumbled. Shigira's voice turned grim. "Enjoy it while you can. The end is coming for us all." But Rina just waved her off, completely absorbed. Annoyed, Shigura peeked over her shoulder, wondering what could be so captivating. Ugh. This guy again? It was a live stream from someone named Narukami Subaru. When Shigura joked he might be their missing leader, Rina's mood soured instantly. Don't even say that. He's just some loudmouth from the second floor. She pointed a finger. You said it yourself if he'd made it out, Kazuki. Would be toast. Our leader is gone, and you need to accept it, but Shiguro wouldn't budge. And how long will our hero hide? Rina snapped. As long as we're hiding? Shigura shot back, her eyes glinting. I'm just passing the time, Rina muttered, turning back to the stream. Her eyes widened. Whoa! Shigura leaned in, her expression mirroring Rina's shock. On screen, Subaru was unleashing a storm of thunder. Against the giants, his very sword crackling with raw electricity. He moved like a blur of lightning, felling not just one, but every giant in his path. But when the last one fell, Subaru collapsed, utterly spent. He'd won, but the victory had cost him every last ounce of his strength. Just then, a figure appeared. Palace had returned with reinforcements. Just in time. He rushed to Subaru's side, calling his name. But Subaru's eyes fluttered closed as the world faded to black. Meanwhile, at the agency, the broadcast suddenly cut, leaving a tense silence. Jun and John exchanged worried glances, trying to figure out how to console the girl beside them. She looked devastated, but it wasn't from sadness. Her face was bright red, with pure embarrassment. That message she sent, she didn't want him thinking it, was just part of the job. But it was a work contact, Suin pointed out, ever the practical one. I'm more of a fan than a manager, Hatsuka cried. It's totally different. Changing the subject, she beamed. Besides, I already told the director. That thunder ability is a game changer. John nodded. No question. That kid just did something extraordinary. Suddenly, Shun gasped. He read your message. Hatsuka practically swooned with excitement. But her joy was short-lived. Wait, ... it just says seen. And just like that, her hopes came crashing down. Elsewhere, a streamer known for his sharp combat analysis was starting his day. Hoki's opinions and tutorials had made him a huge name in the community. He meticulously reviewed footage from all the top players, from Kurokawa Amon's recent dive into the blue zone to the rising star Kazuki. But today, one name was on his mind. Let's be real, Shibuya told his audience, Subaru is a living legend. There's no one else to talk about. He thanked his viewers for tuning in. Tonight, it's all about Narukami Subaru. Hoki pulled up the latest trending topics and landed directly on the hero's incredible stream. Even a seasoned analyst like him was stunned by the raw power on display. Look at this, he said, captivated. He's controlling the flow perfectly, channeling just enough energy into his blade without an ounce of waste. The streamer found nothing to critique, a fact he knew others wouldn't grasp. Watch this kid, he announced to his viewers. He's going to be a big deal. Hookwai nearly missed the boy's unique skill, but Hawkeye's confirmed it. His control was now sharper than Subaru's had ever been at his prime. The next morning, the protagonist awoke with a jolt. The system noted Stage 6 was on hold, asking if he wished to abandon the challenge. Though his exhaustion was expected, a deep weariness clung to him. Opening his player kit, Subaru saw that his follower count had exploded overnight. He offered a quick apology, promising to return after some much-needed rest. With a final wave, he ended the stream and teleported away. He appeared in the challenge's waiting room, a massive gate looming before him. A new message from Hatsuka arrived, urging him to reconsider an earlier proposal. Subaru dismissed it as spam until a familiar corporate logo caught his eye. It was from Suten Entertainment, a powerhouse in the industry. Later, back in the city, he looked into the company that sponsored players. They were a huge entertainment conglomerate. The clip of Hoi from Sin praising him had gone completely viral. Subaru saw the comment section was an absolute war zone, but smiled at the praise. Well, he thought, the man has excellent taste. Elsewhere, Isaac heard the news from Hawkeyes about the hero's rising star. He fumed. How could a rookie on the second floor have so much potential? Isaac struggled to keep his composure from shattering. His mood instantly brightened when he walked into a tavern and saw the protagonist. Isaac's attempts to chat were met with a wall of silence from Subaru. Annoyed, he accidentally knocked a cup of steaming coffee right onto the hero. "Oh, my mistake," he said with a smirk. "Just now noticed you." Isaac leaned in. "This is a small world, isn't it?" Still, no response. The blonde then demanded the coffee and sweets he'd asked for before. When Subaru simply got up to leave, Diok's temper flared. "I warned you what would happen if you kept ignoring me," he shouted. He grabbed the protagonist's arm. "Apologize, unless you want your journey to end here." But the hero effortlessly peeled his hand away. "I'm done with these childish games." His grip was so firm the blonde winced, his bones groaning in protest. "Consider us even for the coffee," Subaru stated coolly as he walked away. Isaac watched, stunned, as Subaru left without a backward glance. The door slammed shut. The blonde stared at his bruised hand. "I was trying to handle this peacefully," he muttered, a new resolve hardening his eyes. "Clearly I've been far too gentle." Outside, the protagonist sent a quick message from his kit. He requested a meeting with Rena at a secluded wooden house in the forest. In a gloomy cave on the second floor, the remnants of fallen monsters littered the ground. The hero stood before the boss room, ready for the final confrontation. He felt his greed ability humming, now at a comfortable level 3. Suddenly, a flicker of light inside the chamber erupted into a monstrous shape. A giant fiery lizard, the salamander, let out a deafening roar and charged. To prevent another mishap, Subaru decided to test the limits of his lightning power. He channeled the energy into his feet, launching himself skyward to strike the salamander. He moved as if in his old body, but the monster countered with a fiery burst meant to stop him cold. Subaru then infused his demonic sword with thunder and cleaved through the flames, though the effort was taxing. Finally, atop the beast, he summoned all his remaining power and split it clean in two, clearing the dungeon with a triumphant foot on its back. At the exit, he noticed his energy was recovering more slowly, but he still had a good amount left to use. The catch was the upgrade for his greed skill now cost a whopping 40,000 credits. Subaru was just hoping a lucrative job would magically appear, and as that very moment a voice called his name from the deep woods. A figure emerged, laughing at him for training there. He remarked that, even though they'd known each other since they were kids, Subaru still managed to surprise him. "I'm persistent," Subaru replied. Isaac's smile faded. "My patience isn't." Getting uncomfortably close, he muttered that he hoped this would be their final encounter, which only made Subaru more curious. Meanwhile, back in the city's center, the young man with hawk-like eyes strolled into a modest tavern. Inside, John, the president of the Sen company, waved him over to their table. They made small talk, discussing how business was booming. "It's been so, Hawkeye admitted, but John waved it off, saying his audience was too loyal to just disappear. Soon, they moved past the pleasantries and got to the real reason for their meeting. The president was curious about Hokuai's appraisal of the were protagonist. "Like I said before," Hawkeye reiterated, "his potential is far greater than Subaru's." John never doubted his friend's instincts and shared that he was planning to recruit him too. At this, the hawk-eyed man grinned. "You've always had a sharp eye for business." After hearing his colleague's thoughts, John's decision was made. He would hire Subaru. He then asked the streamer to work with the newcomer to drive up engagement. Back in the forest, it was just the two of them, and Subaru accepted the challenge without hesitation. Isaac sneered. "Bad things tend to happen when you wander into dungeons all alone," he insisted. The boy had only made it this far on pure luck, mocking his ambition. Truthfully, The blonde just wanted the blue-eyed hero's name to vanish as everything about him got under his skin. Subaru was growing tired of a life where everyone seemed to have such intense feelings about him. "Why are you so obsessed with giving me a hard time?" he asked. "It's because of your name," Isaac snapped back, but Subaru simply retorted that most people seem to like it. To explain, the blonde reminded him, "You know who my father is, don't you?" But the hero was still drawing a blank. Isaac finally clarified, "I am Reinhardt's son," which jogged Subaru's memory of the legendary Sword Saint. A past duel had created a massive stir. Subaru, from the Blue-Eyed Guild, had materialized out of thin air and toppled the famous ranker Reinhardt of Runeterra. He'd done it with a single attack in under a second. Reinhardt had tried to demand a rematch but collapsed before he could even stand. "In the present!" Isaac screamed, his voice filled with fury. "Don't you dare say his name!" Subaru wondered if the hatred was for his name or for his father. He tried to share the story of Hosoi Subaru's struggles, but it fell on deaf ears. The blonde boy, tired of the chatter, decided to heat things up. A circle of fire trapped them both. With hands glowing, he wanted to end the conversation. "Be quiet," he demanded. "I can't stand you," Isaac admitted, "or how everyone treats you like a star." He fumed. "It's because of you my guild vanished from the 8th floor." "They got exactly what they deserved," Isaac spat. He hoped they were all somewhere unpleasant. A fireball flew from his hands. "Your luck ran out when you got that name." It burst dramatically over Subaru. Isaac panted, slightly annoyed he'd overdone it, but happy with the result. He mused about going after the masked streamer next. "Masked, you say?" A voice called out from the smoke as the protagonist appeared. "Wearing a familial mask. Are you talking about me?" Isaac's jaw dropped. "No way! How are you okay after that?" The protagonist just sighed dramatically. "I really don't like shouting," he said coolly, especially from someone so incredibly dull. He delivered a swift punch to the boy's middle, sending him to his knees. Isaac gasped, unable to form a single word. "Now, that's a much better look for you," the hero teased. "Since you're here, let's play a game." "Guess who I am?" he challenged. "Am I the humble Hosoi Subaru? Or maybe the famous masked streamer? Or could I be the real Narukami Subaru?" The realization dawned on Isaac's face. This was the legendary streamer. But he couldn't accept it. A nobody like you getting the thunder element? That's hardly a big deal. Someone like you could never win at this level. "That means I'm even better than the real one," Isaac roared, lunging forward. But Subaru's reaction was poetry in motion, effortlessly disarming him. The boy froze, stunned. "How are you so confident?" Subaru asked softly. Isaac's mind reeled, flashing back to Subaru's words. He had spoken of Hosoi's journey as if it belonged to someone else. The truth hit him like a lightning bolt, but it was too late. 2 graceful strikes and the encounter was over. The blonde boy was overwhelmed. "Consider this a thank you," the hero whispered, "for letting me borrow Hosoi's name for a while." Later, in a quiet cafe, people pointed at a young man cringing at his live stream. They had no idea they were watching a legend. After some thought, Subaru realized the mask was perfect for keeping his enemies guessing. Right on cue, the person he was waiting for arrived. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," Hatsuka said. "I'm the one who sent the message." She introduced herself, a bright blush coloring her cheeks. They shook hands, a spark of mutual respect between them. The girl couldn't help but stare, thinking he looked just like the real Subaru, as if he'd returned from a long journey. He was hiding his face, but his presence was unmistakable. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Her face went from pink to crimson, completely flustered. She remembered her boss's one rule: make a great impression. So, of course, she was already messing it up, nervously scratching her head. He broke the awkward silence. "So, you're a fan?" When she eagerly nodded, he tried to be modest, but she cut in, "I'm a fan of you." She beamed, admitting she'd been watching his streams since day one. "I was so worried for you during the Giant's trial," she confessed. He smiled, genuinely thanking her for her support. "I felt like it was fate," she began. "That's why I sent that message, ... from the official company profile." Shaking herself back to reality, she got professional, laying out the contract. The company would handle everything to build his brand. All he needed to do in return was simply keep streaming. "Do all streamers have it this good?" Subaru asked, amazed. "Well, you're a special case," she started to say before he asked, "Are all the managers? ... like you?" He finished, and she immediately got flustered. She couldn't tell if he was impressed or annoyed. While she was spiraling, he was just amazed by her high power level. If a company manager was this strong, he realized he had to get much stronger. She drooped, completely misreading his silent intensity. But then he grinned. "I think I can trust you," he said, holding out his hand. He wanted to sign with her entertainment company. Nearly crying with relief and joy, she accepted his handshake. The next day, he went live, and 703 people instantly joined. He couldn't believe the overnight jump, but that was all Hatsuka's magic. "All right, everyone," he declared, "get ready for an amazing show." He launched the 6th stage, The Legend of the Thunder Path. On a stormy day, a band of knights huddled in a tent, making a plan. "Is he here yet?" Pellis asked. Falcon shook his head no. Another knight grumbled, "Can we even trust this guy?" It was tough for them to believe a lone foreigner had bested the giant chief. "You can't be that gullible if you didn't see it yourself," one snapped. "That's enough," police shouted, silencing their bickering. And right on cue, the very person they were debating appeared. Pellis immediately went to his side. "You're all right?" The hero nodded. To everyone else, his mysterious mask was more than a little suspicious. He could feel their doubt hanging heavy in the air. He remembered the mute function Hatsuka set up and muttered, "Such an arrogant crew." An older knight named Dale stepped forward, offering his thanks. "It's a pleasure," Subaru said. The old man explained he was defending the village. ... when the giants launched their attack. Subaru's eyes lit up. "Is there anything out there more powerful than the chief?" The old man told a tale of true giants who battled gods before being sealed away. The ones they fought now were just remnants of a legendary past. But Dale's voice shook as he described the new terror that appeared after the chief fell. A heavy mood settled over the tent, but all the protagonist could think was, "This sounds fun." With everyone against him, Dale lost his nerve. One villager scoffed, claiming the hero's confidence was just ignorance. Police reminded Subaru of the legend, a fragment of thunder hidden atop Millennium Mountain. The story foretold that the village's greatest ally would be the one to find it. Just days later, their worst fears were realized. A neighboring village was ablaze as giants sent people scattering. The colossal leader, reminded of his own son, snatched a knight from the ground. In a show of force, he overpowered the knight in his palm. He then roared that he would find his solace in their downfall. Subaru arrived, witnessing the giant's rampage from the mountain's edge. His live-stream chat erupted, calling the massive creature an unhinged force of nature. A flashback revealed a warning. He had only 3 days. If he couldn't find the fragment by then, he had to get away. Sewed. The hero raced to Millennium Mountain, chasing the whisper of thunderous power. He wasn't scared, trusting in his ability to conquer any obstacle. Of course, this was the same catchphrase he always used before a challenge. The chat immediately caught the classic reference, filling the screen with memes. Some of his supporters even created in-game missions for him. Subaru rode on until he found the spot where the fragment was said to be concealed. His path was blocked by a colossal wall of solid rock. He started his search, guided only by Pellis's vague tallies. Nobody even knew what this legendary fragment was supposed to look like. They didn't know how to unlock its power either, but they were certain of one thing. Whoever could command the thunder would be strong enough to turn back the giants. In a different world, Hatsuka cheered to her boss that she had sealed a major deal. He laughed, teasing that she had finally become a proper professional. Suka shot back, "Wait, what was I until now?" Her boss, John, mentioned he'd connected with the hawk-eyed contact for her. The moment her shift ended, she flopped onto her bed, buzzing with excitement for the hero's stream. Watching him on screen while also working for his campaign was her absolute dream. She tuned in just in time to hear him deliver his signature line. But instead of just being thrilled, she was taken aback. His confidence was so natural it felt almost otherworldly. At the mountain's peak, Subaru began to glow with electrical energy. He smashed his fist into the stone wall, but it wasn't enough. He struck again, harder this time, causing an explosion of pure lightning. A wave of joy washed over him. He knew he was about to uncover something incredible. Everyone in the chat frantically typed, asking what was going on. He alone could feel an ancient power calling to the thunder within his own soul. As he approached a hidden door, the chat debated how he'd find a key. He ignored them and simply placed his hand on the stone surface. Arcs of lightning danced from his touch, and he gathered the electricity into his fist. He grinned, finally understanding the door's secret. It didn't need a key, it needed to be challenged. As his crackling energy met the ancient stone, the entire mountain seemed to shake in response. A door magically swung open, beckoning our hero inside. He took a fortifying breath and strode forward to meet his final test. As he crossed the threshold, the gate sealed, trapping him until he succeeded. In the tent, where the protagonist had been, his allies were still mapping out plans. The old man wondered aloud if the blonde truly believed their hero could master the power of thunder. "Absolutely," he replied without a hint of doubt. Dale remarked that their leader placed immense faith in him, but for Pellis, there was never any room for uncertainty. Suddenly, a figure appeared, crying out that everyone was doomed, even if Subaru won. He crumpled to his knees, trembling, saying his friends couldn't comprehend the power of the giant that awaited them. Police approached the boy, asking if they should just quit. The blonde was determined to trust the hero who had rescued them once before. But the boy retorted that it was easy for Pellis to talk since he hadn't witnessed the creature himself. All at once, the tent began to shake, sending items tumbling from the tables. A knight burst in, shouting that the enemy was upon them, stunning everyone with its unexpectedly swift arrival. Inside the cavern the protagonist had revealed, he wandered, trying to decipher the trial's purpose. Some thought the cave seemed empty, while others mused about how thunder could strike so fast it was invisible. Subaru began to search for something he couldn't see. He closed his eyes, recalling the challenge's name, Thunderpath. The most intense energy he could sense was emanating from directly below his feet. An idea sparked. He grabbed a stone and hurled it with all his might. Just as the electricity fades into the air, it becomes unseen by the naked eye. But the farther the stone flew, the more intense the energy became. A few paces away, the protagonist's stone was instantly vaporized. He knew this was a trial, so his only option was to push forward. It felt like a brutal test of stamina. Failure meant being eliminated for good. While some offered him missions, others urged him to quit before it was too late. He simply thanked them and kept going. Inside a forest cabin, Shigeru was completely absorbed by the player kit. She was so focused that when Rina appeared, she leaped out of her seat. Startled, Rina wondered aloud if her friend was looking at something she shouldn't be. Shigeru quickly denied it, blaming her jumpiness on being tired. Rina playfully suggested that only troublemakers were so easily flustered. With her own stream access blocked, the girl was getting restless. She grew suspicious, feeling like she was being subtly nudged away. Her patience snapped, and she snapped at her friend in frustration. "Go rest somewhere else and stop hovering over me," she demanded, muting the kit. Uncomfortable, Rina decided she had to leave. Realizing she'd gone too far, Shigeru tried to make peace. "Stay and have something to eat," she offered, but Rina stormed out, slamming the door. Finally alone, Shigeru could return to the clandestine stream. If Rina had discovered what she was watching, it would have been a disaster. She mused that Subaru, despite his quirks, wouldn't abandon their group. His on-screen presence captivated her, so much like their leader. He had the same commanding aura, just with a strange fixation on earning credits. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice Rina's return until a hand clamped onto her shoulder. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" Rina asked softly. Her friend's furious expression said it all. Deep within the Thunderpath cave, the hero advanced with caution. Suddenly, jolts of energy coursed through him, but his progress barely moved. It was only at 2.3%. He could withstand it, though. The sensation was an old, unwelcome friend he'd faced many times before. At 3.2%, he knew a monumental task lay ahead. But with the goal in sight, all he needed was unwavering resolve. His audience was baffled, unable to comprehend why he wasn't fleeing. They couldn't feel the purpose behind his pain. Reaching the end was paramount, but he hoped to uncover the cave's other secrets, too. From his command center, Hawkeye's watched the stream, analyzing every detail. He recalled John's advice on collaboration, a lesson their own boss never learned. John always said that when building a successful stream, you could only control half the outcome. The other half was pure chance. He knew a player's popularity was the ultimate measure of success. Subaru's broadcast felt less like a prose and more like an intimate journey. Since Narukami was just starting out, Hawkeye's knew exactly what to do. This was his chance to latch on to a rising meteor and become a star in his own right. Critics claimed he stayed an analyst because he lacked the nerve to climb the tower himself. But the truth was he yearned for the summit just like everyone else. He dreamed of achieving what Subaru was doing. For a moment he got lost in that vision and almost missed a key play model. He returned to his work only to realize he'd overlooked something vital. Back on the protagonist's stream, the grueling journey continued. With every step toward the finish line, new injuries appeared. Subaru didn't complain or pause. He simply pushed through the torment in silence. It's said the most potent lightning is what sears you to your core. By now, the hero had walked long enough for that electricity to reach his heart. His internal pathways were about 20% open. As the meridians cleared, he gained a point of magical power. Think of the smaller meridians as tiny streams running through the body. Opening them was like clearing a path for a mighty river. In that moment, the power of thunder flooded the protagonist's entire being. Hasoi had never experienced this kind of raw purification. The hero was innovating. Normally, a person uses their own gentle magic for this process. Drawing on an outside force was reckless and brought agonizing discomfort. Despite the immense strain, the protagonist continued toward his objective. Watching this unfold at home, Rina felt a wave of sadness. As a fellow player, she understood his actions, but not his motivation. He was essentially absorbing raw external power instead of his own magic. Everyone knew the pain was so intense that a person should instantly pass out. Even if elimination in the exam wasn't permanent, the suffering was very real. He fought back tears, wondering why he was pushing himself this hard. At 50% completion, the smaller pathways in his body were just about clear. That's when it hit him. He had messed up. The strain was so intense, he was convinced he was about to fail for good. Subaru used to be the one who'd say no. Obstacle was too great. It was his signature move, the way he fired up his team, because he always pulled through. But not this time. A wave of regret washed over him. If he hadn't been so full of himself, maybe they wouldn't have been lost because of him. Twist the knife, Subaru, recalled the blonde's final words, calling out his own prideful nature. It was all on him. He forced himself onward, pushing as far as his body would allow. Finally, his strength gave out, and he collapsed, unable to even lift. His arms, when he came to, he was in a vibrant green meadow, back in his old form and completely lost. Then he turned and saw them, all his friends enjoying a picnic. He couldn't believe his eyes. Shu, Sod, Kei, Iore, Shigor, and Rine, every single one of them. It felt so unreal, but he sprinted toward them anyway. As he drew near, Subaru broke down, the scene feeling utterly real. Through tears, he laughed about a horrible nightmare he wanted to share, but their faces were cold. They blamed him for their fates. Panic seized Subaru as the girl Blonde had taken down asked why he failed to protect them. After all his big talk, suddenly the cheerful campfire erupted into crimson flames. Subaru tried to shout to make them understand, but they twisted into shadowy figures of retribution. His screams grew frantic as he begged his friends not to abandon him, his desperation forcing him to his knees. He pleaded, but a blinding flash consumed the scene. Back in reality, Subaru awoke, knowing it was all a vision. Now at 97%, he was battered, but so close to the finish line. The nightmare was awful, but it reminded him of his purpose, of what Kazuki had done for him. Meanwhile, in the village under siege, the townsfolk stood beside the knights, ready to make their stand. Fear was thick in the air. One of the colossal figures had already breached their defenses. The knights desperately searched for the true mastermind. Some muttered that their hero had bolted, but police roared in defiance. "You put your faith in an outsider," he yelled, "and now you doubt him?" The blonde demanded to know if the grumblers had any shame calling themselves knights. Dale was quick to agree. "He's right. Before we point fingers, we have a village to save." His blade flared with energy. A knight's duty is to shield others, not to be shielded. With that, Dale and Pellis charged, leading the line to face the beasts, ready to give their all. Just then, Subaru hit 99%. Through the haze, he saw a glowing core of pure energy, the goal of his ordeal. The only catch? His own energy was at 100% exhaustion, but still he was too close to quit now. Back in the fight, Dale moved like a blur. His sword a silver flash that sliced through a giant's leg. The creature howled. The pain from the hit registered as he tried to grab the old man, but he missed. From behind, the blonde warrior told his colleague, "I'll take it from here." He scaled the giant's body with astonishing speed. Upon reaching its neck, he leaped and unleashed a whirlwind of slashes. The giant was vanquished in a flash, falling backward without a fight. Seeing this, a glimmer of hope began to spread among the knights. They swarmed the monster's form, venting their fear and frustration. Pellis declared that with the strongest giant defeated, they could finally relax. But Dale soberly warned them that this was not the main boss. Unaware, the other knights were amazed at how easy the fight had been. One of them believed things would be simpler now, just before he was suddenly overwhelmed. From afar, Pellis and Dale could only make out a shadow, but the blonde understood. This new enemy was on an entirely different level. Returning to our hero, his progress hit 99.99%. He screamed into the sky, "This will be the first step of my revenge." An explosion of electric energy erupted, and then it was over. As the energy faded, it seemed he had finally completed the task. But as he relaxed, a final shock shot through Subaru's system. The opening of his smaller meridians was complete. One more jolt from anything else, and he would have been knocked out of the trial. Luckily, the protagonist only fainted after clearing the 6th stage. From a distance, John was annoyed. The kid never knew when to stop. On a call with the Falcon Eyes, 2 members confirmed they were watching Subaru's stream. Hoey's voice boomed with certainty that hero is about to become a legend. He'll be a star player and a top streamer, just like the ones from Narukamiko. Okay. What the hero was doing was exactly what the audience craved, because it felt so real. After all, the true leader of the Blue Eyes was a player, not some entertainer, which meant they were about to witness the birth of a new legend live. Back in the hero's broadcast, he slowly pushed himself off the ground. His entire body protested, his fatigue level at a staggering 81 out of 100. But Subaru's stats had jumped, and for clearing the 6th stage, he was showered in credits from his viewers. He now had around 20,000, halfway to what he needed to level up the greed bet. More importantly, he now held the key to taking down the giants, an item called the Spear of Lightning, a legendary artifact no one in the chat had ever seen. Even as a one-time use item, it was something you weren't supposed to find until the 8th floor, so the hero held on to it, knowing that items of this caliber could change depending on the situation. He finally started heading out of the cave, ready to take on those things. Back at the village raid, the knights faced a monster as tall as a building. This was the true giant they had to defeat, and it was already at the walls. The Monster King. Grog let out a deafening roar. In that instant, a knight turned and ran, and Pellies yelled, demanding to know what he was doing. The boy cried out that he had warned them, that they had no idea what they were up against. Just then, he ran to the monster's feet, kneeling and begging the giant to show him mercy. Annoyed at being bothered by a mere worm, the giant felt his temper rise. As Dale tried to help his friend escape, he gave them a crucial warning. But they lingered a moment too long. The blonde's shout was a futile attempt to help as Grog's foot came down, sending them on their way. Pellies felt his resolve crumble, seeing no path to victory or freedom. It was as if they were all just birds trapped inside a large enclosure. Fear gripped Pellis, but it quickly ignited into a blaze of fury. He yelled out, claiming to know who was responsible for what happened to the giant's son, which finally got Grog's attention. Trembling, the blonde pointed his blade toward a faraway spot, saying that's where Subaru had gone. He cunningly directed the monster to an entirely different place, but the giant was sharp and saw through the knight's fib. Grog wondered aloud if the person who harmed his son wasn't present, or if Pellias was just trying to pull a fast one. He readied himself to teach the knight a lesson. But then a flash of lightning illuminated the mountain, seizing the giant's focus. In truth, the spectacular display captured everyone's notice, because it was absolutely immense. So grand, in fact, that Pellis wondered if the protagonist had arrived. From the mountain's summit, our hero began Stage 7, an electrifying challenge known as Lightning. It was the final test because anything more powerful would be insurmountable on the second floor. Finally, with unwavering confidence, the hero declared there was no need to overthink. He would end this with a single, decisive move. For the moment, Grog was the stronger of the two, so the first strike was crucial. Just then, the protagonist unleashed his lightning spear, a force so potent it warped the very clouds. The spear conjured a crimson tempest under a sky of dark thunder, all at just 10% of its full power. The protagonist's energy drained, but the item materialized in his grasp. At 33%, it began to take the shape of a dark lightning spear. Regrettably, the gamble of greed couldn't negate the drawbacks. Subaru knew he wasn't yet ready for such a legendary artifact, as his energy hit 88 with 50% activation. Soon after, the protagonist saw that the monster had spotted him on the peak. It was hardly a surprise, given the celestial light show he'd created. Grog no longer cared about the blonde knight. Those bolts of light were all the proof he needed that the man on the mountain was the one he sought. Pell yelled, trying to regain the beast's focus, but it was no use. Besides, he had a new problem to contend with, as the village was now swarming with smaller giants. Grog locked his eyes on the light and imagined what his son must have gone through. He charged forward, like a force of nature, bellowing that he would make the hero experience a fraction of that feeling. The monster tore through the forest, leveling everything, while the protagonist's preparations reached 88%. He knew this was an all-or nothing gambit, and he couldn't afford to miss, so he kept his gaze fixed on his target. He recalled a tip from a former teammate who told him to stay focused when launching a spear. The advice was simple: aim true and clear your mind of all distractions. The boy had also mentioned that the spear's form was everything, especially for a hero like him. He was nothing like the other spear throwers. He was, after all, the leader of the Blue Eyes. At 95.2% charged, Subaru felt a wave of worry, but then he recalled the advice he'd been given for a non-standard throw. His friend had told him that instead of just throwing it, he should make it detonate. As the monster drew closer, the chat went wild, screaming for him to throw it. But his plan depended on waiting until the very last second. The creature kept climbing and then leaped straight for the hero. It was going to land right on top of him. The hero's focus sharpened on the beast, and when the charge hit 100%, he was ready. He only had one shot. All he could think was that he had to land this hit no matter what. Lightning seared his arm, but he launched it just as the giant was mere meters from him. Grog had no time to react. The spear struck its forehead, and the monster dropped in an instant. When the lightning hit, the giant exploded. As it disintegrated in the light, Grog cried out his son's name one last time before vanishing completely. In the aftermath, everyone in the chat was in stunned disbelief that Subaru had actually won. Stage 7 was complete, and all of the hero's stats shot up. He also gained a new reward called the Heart of Sunder. Subaru was baffled, but the item activated on its own, erupting in a blinding light. Suddenly, he opened his eyes in a place he didn't recognize. Before him loomed the shadow of a giant. He tried to shout, but no sound came out. To his horror, he found his body was completely still. Besides the giant, countless other nameless shadows appeared, all of them staring at Subaru. It was as if they were trying to show him something, but his hand began to glow and a beam of light banished the strange place. Then he was back on the mountain as the system announced the main mission had been updated. The quest began. Find clues with the Heart of Thunder. Subaru couldn't tell if this was real or just another test. He quickly apologized to his chat for the silence. Then it was time to claim his prize. He collected a cool 40,000 credits. Pretending to be drained, he ended the stream. Later, at a bar, he asked, "Did that abrupt ending work?" "Perfectly," Hatsuka confirmed with a grin. She added, "By the way, you broke 3,000 viewers." He was floored. He'd been too focused to even notice. "For a debut, that's legendary," she said. He realized leaving them hanging was the ultimate hook. "I'll open the rewards live next time for them," he declared. Hatsuka's eyes lit up. He was a natural. "Speaking of which, I have a gift for you," she teased. "And it's an offer I don't think you can turn down." She told him to find a streamer named Hawkeyes. He pulled up the channel just as it went live. The title was a wild theory. Was he the original Subaru? It turned out this guy had been analyzing him the whole time. Hawkeyes leaned in. "Okay, I have a lot to unpack here." His theory? "That streamer is Subaru, just using a new name." "I'm 100% certain of it," he stated. Subaru glanced at his manager, wondering if she thought so too. Hatsuka shifted. "Can I ask you something a bit forward? I know it's not my place, but I have to know." She looked him in the eye. "Why are you really a streamer?" After a heart-stopping pause, he gave his answer. "It's for the money," he said simply. "That's it." Hatsuka looked flustered. "Oh, right. Of course." Eager to move on, she jumped back to business. She explained that Hawkeyes was a veteran contractor, and she'd already arranged a future for them together. Hawkeyes would do reaction streams, sharing the profits. "This agency is full of surprises," Subaru laughed. She blushed. "It's a very unique bonus." "So," she asked, "will you partner with him?" On his way home, his own answer echoed in his mind. Maybe he didn't need the mask or the obsession with cash. With every new friend, hiding felt less important. Still, he spent the 40,000 credits without hesitation. His greed skill was now level 4, but with only 120 credits left, he was broke. At least he had the collaboration with Hawkeyes to look forward to. He pulled out the flower, certain his companion already knew everything. In the privacy of the manager's suite, she buried her face in a pillow, her cheeks on fire from what Subaru had said. Even though she was all alone, she couldn't stop blushing. Her mind raced, creating a noble backstory for his need for money. Surely, he had a sick family member to care for. That had to be it. So, despite her intense curiosity, she had quickly declared she wouldn't ask any more questions. Besides, her heart fluttered when Subaru mentioned that only good things had come from their meeting. She had even whispered that she liked him too, releasing all her pent-up feelings. With a soft punch to her bed, she sighed dreamily. In her eyes, Subaru was a truly magnificent and honorable person. Far away on the 7th floor of a grand tower, a lone figure was deep in his physical training inside a castle. He paused, watching a stream from some personality called Hawkeyes, who compared a new hero to the Subaru of old. The comparison annoyed him, especially since he didn't even recognize the streamer's name. From the comments section, an aide informed him that the streamer was a rising star, already averaging 8,000 views. The man from the blue zone scoffed. He remembered hitting those numbers himself back in the day. As they talked, he realized this Subaru was the one rumored to have mastered lightning itself. Watching a clip from the stream, he had to admit it was remarkable. The technique reminded him of a saying from Sako Shuhai, "Do not let your eyes stray when throwing a spear." Amon admitted he had tried to learn everything he could from the legendary blue-eyed lancer. After all, everyone from that fabled guild was considered the absolute best. People seemed to forget that it wasn't just Subaru who was a prodigy. Their sudden disappearance was also highly unusual. Hawkeyes kept rambling on, not needing to explain any further. This irritated Amon and his subordinate, who figured the streamer was just desperate to go viral. The player snapped the screen off. "Why did I have to watch that?" he demanded. His aide explained that the request had come directly from the guild leader. "Thunder is the emblem of the blue eyes," he reminded him, "and the blue eyes are the founding guild of the Blue Zone." The aide then revealed they had managed to get some intel. The hero was in desperate need of cash. He pulled a cover from a nearby crate, revealing 100 gleaming gold bars. Amon was taken aback, but not by the massive recruitment bonus. He was stunned that Subaru was only interested in physical currency. Back at the Thunderpath Challenge, the city was a wreck, and everyone was pitching in to repair the damage. The blonde knight led his team, helping the injured and handing out medicine. His worried expression vanished and turned into a bright smile the moment he saw the protagonist emerge from the battlefield. "Palia," the hero called. "We were so worried when you collapsed outside the village." The hero admitted he still felt a little weak, and his friend understood completely. He then asked for a moment to talk, but the kind knight suggested they chat properly a bit later. The genuine gesture warmed Subaru's heart. While the stream's chat exploded, with fans wanting the two to get together. Once back in his room, the protagonist finally got a look at his rewards. The first was an electric heart that boosted thunder resistance and the power of his lightning attacks. His online audience couldn't tell from his stunned silence if he was happy or disappointed. But internally, Subaru was floored. The item was flawless for someone with his abilities. It was simply perfect. Just then, a gentle knock came from his door. "Come in," he said. The knight entered, carrying a fruit basket and wondering if the hero was feeling any better. After a good rest, he and his new friend skipped the fruit and got right to talking. "So those legends," Subaru began, "they're not just stories, are they?" The blonde youth nodded grimly. "Apparently not. And thank you for what you did." Subaru then showed him the artifact he'd recovered, an object called the Heart of Thunder. The color immediately drained from his companion's face, a flicker of fear in his eyes. "You know what this is?" Subaru stated, seeing right through the quick denial. Police tried to deflect, saying his knowledge was just from fanciful tales. Yet he confessed that two particular legends had always felt disturbingly real. The first foretold of a thunder wielder who would arrive and defeat the great giant, a prophecy Subaru had just unknowingly fulfilled by taking down their leader. The second was a deeper myth about a primordial war between gods and giants for control of the storm. That war ended with the giants' defeat. This heart was likely a product of that ancient conflict. Forged by an unknown hand, it was created for a specific reason. Pelés theorized its purpose was to give humanity a fighting chance, a way for mortals to command lightning itself in the struggle. He was convinced it was an equalizer, a tool to stand against the might of gods and giants. Just as the weight of it all settled, a system notification chimed. The Thunder Path was officially complete. 17,000 achievement points poured in. His thunder skill surged to level 3 and his entire body began to emit a brilliant light. His friend cried out in alarm as Subaru was suddenly teleported away in a blinding flash. He appeared on the third floor, known as Ordinal, materializing on a teleportation pad. The other players groaned when they saw him. He was still hiding behind that Neurokami mask. A fan, Hatsuka, sent 1,000 credits with a cheerful message. He didn't even notice, lost in a memory this place had unlocked. This was the exact spot he had first run into Rina. She had been completely flustered, having lost her entire group of friends. She'd asked him frantically if he'd spotted anyone tall like himself, or maybe someone with a really big palm. He told her he had, pointing her toward a nearby corner. Rina took off running, only to get completely turned around after 2 steps. He was hopelessly lost all over again. Watching her spin in circles, he felt a pang of sympathy. He called out, offering to help find her friends, and her face lit up with pure joy. It wasn't as if he had anything better to do with his time, and so the two of them had properly met. It was a good memory, but now it was tinged with sorrow. He couldn't shake the feeling that if he hadn't helped her then, perhaps she would still be here today. The chat flooded with questions about what was wrong. But he couldn't put the crushing guilt into words. He just announced that his next broadcast would feature the Hawkeyes and quickly signed off. Later, while he was sitting in a restaurant, someone slid into the seat across from him. It was John, apologizing for being late as he sat down. He explained that Hatsuka couldn't make it, unless the system warps you. Traveling between floors takes forever. He introduced himself as the director of the entertainment company. The hero nodded, saying the manager had mentioned him before. John confessed that he usually leaves these meetings to Hatsuka, but he was too curious to meet the person who had sparked her interest so intensely. You know, John said with a smirk, you're only the second person to get her that excited. The first one was the famous blue-eyed Subaru. John explained that the girl's standards were incredibly high, then shifted gears. Let me ask you something else. Are you familiar with a guild that goes by the name Blue Eyes? The question struck him like a bolt of lightning, and his shock was impossible to hide. The director's knowing look confirmed this was one of the main reasons he'd come. The other reason, he explained, involved the prize for a tournament on this floor, set to be revealed in 5 days. But as soon as John showed him what the reward was, a wave of pure irritation washed over him. Elsewhere, after the live stream ended so abruptly, Rina grumbled about how short it was. Bored and curious, she decided to take a walk through the forest just outside their cabin. A little while later, she found Sugar standing perfectly still. All finished? Yup, the girl replied, not taking her eyes off something ahead. Rina followed her gaze. What are you doing? She asked. Thinking, Sugar said, gesturing to a group of warriors frozen solid in the clearing. I'm trying to decide if I should just shatter them or let them be. Get rid of them, obviously, Rina said without a moment's hesitation. But the other girl wasn't so sure. If Kazuki sent them, Sugar reasoned, he wouldn't have sent such small fry. It feels like a setup, but leaving them intact could expose their location, which was a risk neither of them wanted. Rina definitely didn't like the idea of these spies reporting back to anyone. With that thought, she summoned dozens of sharp blades from the earth through her magic. A simple gesture from her hand made them all align, pointing forward. Shigure tried to shout for her to stop and think, but Rina's mind was already made up. She launched the blades forward and they tore through the frozen figures, which crumbled into nothing but glittering ice dust. Don't be rash, Ri cautioned. Whether it's the blondes or not, this smells like a setup. Sending anyone back now would be a mistake. She looked at her friend. You need to be decisive, not hesitant. Think clearly. Just then, a message flashed on Shigure's player kit. Rina peered at the screen and her expression froze. The initial shock gave way to a simmering rage. Are you kidding me? She hissed. They're using Toshia's shoes as a prize? Easy, Shigure said, placing a hand on her arm. It's bait. They're trying to draw us out. They know we're still around, but we can't let this go, Rina replied, her mind already spinning. Shigure admitted, I'm no good at being sneaky. But you, she said, locking eyes with Rina, are brilliant at it. A slow smile spread across Rina's face. Don't say another word. I know what I have to do. But as she moved, Shigure grabbed her. Wait, no heroics. I have a better idea. We wait until a winner is crowned, then we steal the prize. Clean and simple. Elsewhere, the hero was looking at a picture of those very same shoes, presented by a clueless John. I figured you'd be interested, the president beamed. Subaru was definitely interested. He wanted them more than anything in the world, but not for the reason John thought. Your success will determine if you get them, John declared. Think of the content we could create. A fan fighting for his idol's legacy? Subaru's mind was screaming. How dare they use Tashi's memory like this? Turning cherished items into a common spectacle was a profound insult. John noticed the sudden chill in the hero's demeanor and felt a pang of worry. I'll do it, Subaru stated, his voice devoid of emotion, which the president mistook for excitement. The hero shot to his feet. I'm gonna go get ready. I'll be rooting for you, John yelled after him, but Subaru was already gone. His focus had narrowed to one single burning objective: get those shoes back. In the solitude of his room, he contemplated the nature of the tournament. A one-on-one competition would be ideal, but he knew he couldn't afford to be selective. Suddenly, a light knock came from his door. It was Hatsuka. As he heard his manager's footsteps, he instinctively reached for his mask. He opened the door to find her, sharply dressed and blushing as usual. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in the mask he was wearing. Please, come in, Subaru invited, and she nearly jumped at the sound of his voice. There's no point talking in the hallway. With a nervous nod she accepted. Her face was flushed, a brilliant crimson. Stepping inside, Hatsuka glanced around. Your room is very minimalist. While she seemed shy, Subaru was sensing an immense power radiating from her. This was no ordinary manager. Her energy was off the charts. Is something on my face? She asked. Nothing, he replied smoothly. Tell me about the tournament. Shaking off her embarrassment, she produced a set of documents. The format is a battle royale, she explained. Numerous players competing for a single prize. His luck was holding. It was essentially an individual contest. The event will be held in the virtual exam area, she continued. Participants must be at the 3rd level and pay a 1,000 credit fee. I've already uploaded the supplementary materials to your kit for review. Thank you, Subaru said sincerely. This is a great help. She simply replied that it was her job. Did you catch that message from the director? She asked, her eyes wide. He knew instantly it was about the offer from the Blue Zone. The name Kyojo Kazuki echoed in his mind, and a wave of pure frustration washed over him. They want to meet you, she explained. They sent a formal request to the company. It was a classic poaching attempt, promising him a mountain of cash and fame. But Subaru's reply left Hatsuka completely speechless. Ignore it. He stated coolly, I have zero interest in joining their guild or any other for that matter. A brilliant smile erupted on her face as if she'd just hit the jackpot. Oh, thank goodness, she confessed. I was so worried you'd accept and leave us. With that weight off her shoulders, she chirped, well, go have an amazing time with the Horikui collaboration, and dashed off. Her dedication was admirable, Subaru thought. though he knew her motives were a little more personal. He chuckled to himself, amused by her transparent enthusiasm. Over on a brightly lit stage, the president was waiting with the famous Hawkeyes. Today's stream was the ultimate showdown. The original legend versus the new Subaru. "This is going to be some top-tier entertainment," Hokue commented with a grin. John, however, looked concerned. "If our boy doesn't win, this could be a PR nightmare." Hokue scoffed. "Have you seen his skills? He's completely undefeated." They both knew that in the end, it all rested on the protagonist's shoulders. Right on cue, the manager strolled in, cheerfully greeting them with Subaru trailing behind. Hokuai's eyes lit up. This is our chance to really blow up. He eagerly stuck out his hand toward the hero, who seemed lost in his own world. "I'm Hokue," he said, introducing himself to get his attention. Subaru finally snapped out of it and shook his hand. "I'm a big fan," Hawkeye added, "even if you are the new kid on the block." "Let's save the introductions for later," John interjected. "We need to go live now." Hawkeyes immediately flipped into streamer mode, greeting the 1,300 people watching. Suddenly, the viewer count skyrocketed from 1,300 to 12,000, a surge that was both thrilling and terrifying. "All right, folks," he boomed. "The moment you've all been waiting for is here." The camera panned to the protagonist as he gave a brief introduction. The chat immediately exploded with comments, all demanding to see his face. "Hey, we haven't even seen it," Akue laughed to the audience. When asked if he was handsome, Subaru deadpanned, devastatingly so. Hawkeyes felt his heart pound as the hype in the chat reached a fever pitch. The energy was electric, and when asked if he had a girlfriend, Subaru's simple no made a certain someone watching breathe a sigh of relief. Hatsuka couldn't help but smile from behind her screen. "No more waiting," Hawkeyes declared to the 20,000 people now tuned in. "It's time for the main event." A dazzling array of lights illuminated the gym, revealing dozens of sleek battle robots. "This challenge is the perfect way to gauge the hero's control," the streamer announced. Plus, he added, with a dramatic flair, the original Subaru's legendary record still stands. When the chat asked if he could top it, the hero's confidence was unwavering. Absolutely. At that moment, the stationary machines roared to life, their optics glowing as they all lunged toward him. Despite the hero's impressive record, the chat was a whirlwind of skepticism and excitement. Some were doubtful, but everyone was on the edge of their seats. A viewer suddenly posted a mission: 10,000 credits if the hero could decommission 43 of them. But there was a catch. "If I fail, I have to take off the mask," he read aloud. No deal. But it was too late. The idea caught fire, and other viewers began throwing in more credits, raising the stakes to an impossible level. Agreeing, Hawkeyes, the streamer, assured his audience that they had nothing to lose, as every credit won would go straight to the hero. With a grin, he told the protagonist to get ready and kicked off the main event. At 3-minute blitz, in a flash, a swarm of assault bots descended on Subaru. He didn't even hesitate, erupting in an aura of lightning and dismantling several in an instant. He then grabbed one bot's head and slammed it into the arena floor. The audience was floored. The hero was taking down enemies without even touching his sword. But then he drew the demonic blade, and with a single fluid arc, cleaved through half a dozen more. The chat was speechless, but the wave of machines was relentless, surging toward him. 1 minute down, 2 to go. Subaru vaulted over the mechanical tide, just like in the old days. Soaring through the air, he gripped the demonic sword, pouring his lightning into the steel. He plunged it into the ground, unleashing a shockwave that sent every nearby bot flying. At the halfway mark, he'd already taken out 26, putting him dangerously close to the second-place record. The chat began to sweat, watching their credits hang in the balance. The scoreboard showed 13 seconds remaining as Subaru's count hit 41. He kept pushing, taking down bot after bot. Another swing brought his total to 42, but exhaustion was setting in. With only 3 seconds left, he knew he had to dig deep. The young man summoned every last ounce of his strength and obliterated one final enemy. Just as the timer hit 0, the scoreboard flashed. 43. Eliminations. The challenge was over. Though he hadn't broken the record, he had tied it, launching his name to the top of the leaderboard. It was a legendary performance, and the stream's viewership had skyrocketed to 40,000. Hokwai sprinted onto the scene, barely comprehending that the protagonist had actually pulled it off. He looked faint with excitement as the chat exploded with a newfound admiration for the hero. They even gained a new respect for Hokwai, realizing his faith in Subaru wasn't just for show. With a triumphant shout, the streamer reminded everyone where they were watching, but he was cut off by a notification. Reinhardt had gifted 10,000 credits. The gesture sent the viewers and Hawkeyes himself into an absolute frenzy. Hokwai could barely stammer out his thanks, starstruck that a top ranker was in his stream, and a name clicked in Subaru's mind. Another gift popped up, this time with a message from the ranker who said he never missed the hero's streams. Hearing this, the protagonist felt a knot in his stomach, wondering if his father had seen what he'd done. Then came the bombshell. Reinhardt asked if he'd be interested in a collaboration. A stunned silence fell over the gym. John and Hatsuka frantically gestured for the protagonist to say yes, but he calmly declined, explaining he had to concentrate on his own path for now, which nearly gave everyone a collective aneurysm. After dropping that bomb, Subaru simply turned to his friend, asked him to handle the cleanup, and walked away. John and Hatsuka caught up to him, demanding to know why he'd refused. John insisted that an offer to team up with a ranker of that caliber was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Unfazed, the protagonist replied that if it was really that big of a deal, then he'd just have to become a ranker himself. The silence that followed was deafening. Hokwai, trying to break the tension, praised the amazing show and promised to send over the prize money, but then he asked a serious question. The streamer pointed out that Subaru didn't seem as thrilled as he had in past victories. Subaru was taken aback. That he'd noticed. With no easy way out, he confessed that no matter how it ended, he was in a bind. Truthfully, the whole stream was just a means to a much bigger end. Shattering every record would have been a terrible idea. A spectacular win meant fame. Sure, but it would have killed the rivalry. On the other hand, a loss would have made people think Subaru was all talk. So our hero aimed for a result that wouldn't rock the boat. Balancing on that knife's edge felt like the smartest play. Hokwai later grilled him, asking if he could have broken the record, but Subaru just let his friends keep guessing. What was done was done. And now it was all about how the story would be told. In a lavish apartment, a fist slammed into a table. This was number 121 on the leaderboard. Reinhardt, the fearsome leader of the Golden Lion Guild. The moment Hawkeyes ended the stream, a terrified subordinate scurried in, asking if something was wrong. The blonde growled that he was livid with that. Rookie Subaru. Reinhardt explained that the kid had simply turned down his offer. His plan had been to humble him in front of the world and put an end to all the chatter. Reinhardt didn't care one bit about the lost credits. This was about his pride. The subordinate handed his master's player kit back to him. The blonde then demanded an update on his other request. It concerned Isak. They were still on the lookout, but he'd vanished. A few days back, hearing this, the ranker grabbed the subordinate by the collar, hoisting him clean off the floor. "Are you trying to test me too?" he seethed. The underling was about to pass out. When the ranker tossed him against a wall, the boy landed in a heap, but Reinhardt simply loomed over him, asking if he was going to complain. Instantly, the boy knelt, begging for another chance. The next day, an exhausted-sounding Hatsuka called her boss. When he picked up, she managed a week, good morning. But John immediately launched into a tirade. Annoyed that she couldn't even fake some enthusiasm for an important conversation, John went on, but the girl cut straight to the collaboration with Reinhardt. She questioned if they really had to go through with it, but her boss's stance was crystal clear. It was up to Hatsuka to bring him around. John admitted that, for a player, the protagonist's attitude was sharp, but she clicked off the call, her mind already set. This was a golden opportunity for the hero, she thought, and she was going to make him see it. When the doorbell rang, the protagonist opened it, looking like he'd just scrubbed his face, but he was in fact still concealed by his mask of Subaru teased, "You want to see my face, don't you?" She denied it, but a rambling excitement told a different story. The hero wondered aloud why everyone was so fixated on him. Hatsuka replied that it might be because he started with nothing, or maybe just because he's a good person. But above all, it was because he was their hope. She explained that he might not realize it, but when he first ascended the tower, there was nothing. It was just monsters everywhere, with no money or food. Survival itself was a miracle. But when someone climbed, they earned credits, and piece by piece, humanity transformed. The place. Back then, it was the legendary players who built the dream that the tower could be overcome, then it was a world they could make their own, and the one who shone brightest was Narukami Subaru, thanks to everything he accomplished. Her mysterious visit left him thinking. 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 He then chose the underdog faction. 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 He easily flattened some local bullies. 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 He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. He shocked an examiner with a bold plan to claim the Thunder Cave. Clearing this place would give him a serious tactical advantage. Ramon hesitated, worried the kid was just planning to use him. If the old man decided to cause a fuss, he was prepared to deal with it. Ultimately, Ramon relented and agreed to write a letter of recommendation. Strong adventurers were always a welcome sight on any raid, after all. He just cautioned the hero to wait 5 days for the rest of the group to assemble. Then in a flash, 3 fans donated a staggering 35,000 credits. Their one condition: cleared the dungeon solo right when the tournament was scheduled to end. Raymond could only stare, his jaw on the floor. He confessed that he'd tried the cave in his youth and lost half his team. As he handed over the letter, he was met with a surprising declaration. "That won't happen to me," the hero stated plainly, "because I'm going in alone." "You're out of your mind," Raymond yelled. "The absolute minimum is 20 people." Subaru just offered a placating smile. "I'd rather not depend on their strength. I might be partnerless now, but that's a temporary situation." From her perch on a mountain, Rena marveled at how much he mirrored Subaru. She was watching his live stream when he suddenly announced he was done with missions. In fact, he declared a complete hiatus from streaming. Then, just as Rena was captivated, he simply logged off. She chuckled because that was something the real Subaru would absolutely do. He did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted, just as her old leader would have. It was like watching her former commander reincarnated as a streamer. Now that she knew he was joining the tournament, she decided a little conversation was needed. Of course, she was also desperately hoping he wouldn't acquire that particular item. "He's absolutely perfected the Subaru impersonation," Katsuka cheered to herself. "If he just did normal jobs, he wouldn't be nearly as thrilling to watch." Hatsuko wondered what kind of spectacle he was planning next. He revealed his plan was to hunt continuously until the tournament. He needed to find out just how much thunder he could wield at his current level. More importantly, he had to prevent anyone else from getting his companion's item. In the city, Ginsaki Naoto from Blue Zone was searching for Subaru. He was thoroughly annoyed and couldn't care less that the kid had mastered thunder. But upon entering a tavern, he found John waiting for him over a beer. The two sat down, and the president didn't mince words. "I know you want one of my streamers." Ginsaki's mood soured instantly, realizing his target was a no-show. John explained that the hero was attending to his own affairs. "Is there anything more important than my guild?" The man from Blue Zone scoffed. The president simply reminded him of the declaration the hero had made on stream. Jinsaki had wanted to negotiate with him personally to get a better outcome. He began to suspect that John was deliberately keeping the two of them from meeting. Slamming his fist on the table, he snarled, "I can tell when someone is protecting their golden goose. He'll have a much brighter future in a major guild than just streaming." On that particular point, John couldn't have disagreed more. He was well aware of Janaki's reputation for pursuing players who worked as streamers. Janaki tried to change his tune. "Look, I don't want Blue Zone to be an enemy of sin." John's tone was steel. "Our people and their choices come first. Period." "You're surprisingly naive for a man in your position," Shinseiki sneered. John was unfazed. "In this world, some of us aren't so easily intimidated." He let a sliver of his immense aura leak out. "Now, you should go." Jinsei felt the crushing pressure and instinctively scrambled to his feet, a tremor running through him. "You can't just order me out of here like I'm nothing," he shouted, his voice thin. The president merely gave him a look of utter boredom. "You will regret crossing me, old man," Jinsei threatened, his face red. John just let out a soft chuckle. "I'm absolutely petrified." 3 days later, on the 3rd floor, the sky serpent nest was in chaos. The hero was the cause of the beautiful mess. Mask off. He was on the hunt. He targeted the largest serpent, blasting a hole clean through its jaw with a single attack. The beast howled in agony. The hero smirked. "All right, warm-up's over." He raised his sword, crackling with energy, and said, "Let's finish this." In a stunning move, the protagonist leaped directly into the monster's roaring mouth. An immense bolt of lightning erupted from within, ending the reign of the serpent boss. His level and stats soared. A new item appeared. A serpent fang. It was valued at around 10,000 credits. Subaru had reached level 35. He'd climbed 9 levels in 3 days, an amazing pace, which reminded him he had some unfinished business to attend to. The next day, Hatsuka greeted him with a radiant smile. He took a seat. "You look like you're on top of the world." "What happened?" "Something wonderful," she replied, practically glowing with joy. He was completely lost. Then it clicked. Oh, the collaboration. I'm so sorry, it completely slipped my mind. Hatsuka just laughed it off. Don't worry, refusing is exactly what I'd expect from you. But, she said, her expression shifting as she handed him a document. If we're aiming to be equals, this paper outlines the only real difference between the two of us. With his 49,000 credits from the livestream, Hatsuka explained the odds. She could have just sent the funds, but she needed to speak with him face to face. Her gambling-addicted friend Shun had taught her how the system worked. It was a simple game of wagers on victory or defeat. The safer the bet, the smaller the reward. His payout ratio was a risky 6.1, while his rival's was much safer, a mere 1.2, marking him as the overwhelming favorite. The boy's name was Omar Schneider, a player who had spent a decade on the third floor. His entire focus was a single goal, clearing the Thunder Cave. Hatsuka was certain Omar was on his way to find him. After all, declaring you'd clear the cave alone was like mocking his 10 years of struggle. He gently warned the girl she was invading his personal space. A flush of embarrassment crossed Hatsuka's face like never before. She retreated to her chair, urging Subaru to get ready for what was coming. Elsewhere, 2 horses pulled a cart at a breakneck pace. They were speeding toward their meeting with the brash upstart, who thought he could clear the dungeon solo. Inside, his teammates grumbled that the boy had no idea what he was walking into. They pleaded with Captain Schneider to keep his cool, but the captain claimed he wasn't upset, acknowledging the hero's growing reputation. Though his career was brief, he was the new Master of Thunder. Dismissed as an arrogant imitation, Subaru faced a challenge from the wary Captain Schneider. The captain insisted this was no time for jealousy. One of his men wondered if that meant they should show the kids respect. Schneider admitted it might be necessary, but his calm facade was cracking. His bald-headed companion worried the most. He knew the kind of beast the captain became when truly angered. Looking over Schneider's profile, the hero was stunned. It had only been 5 years since he'd last seen news of him. An old article claimed Schneider's team was on the verge of success. Knowing this, Subaru understood why he was the favorite to win. Unfazed by the doubt, Subaru cleverly turned the duel into a high-stakes wager. In the city's bustling market, a merchant scoffed at the poor quality of the materials. He regretfully informed the hunter that his haul was subpar. He would only offer 1,500 credits. The hunter nearly walked, but the merchant's trick worked. Only he understood the true worth of the goods. Soon, a sharper customer appeared. When Subaru presented his item, the merchant prepared his usual spiel. His prize, should he win, all of the captain's secret intel on the treacherous Thunder Dungeon. He was ready to complain about its quality, but he wouldn't let a chance for profit slip by. The merchant appraised the item carefully. He declared it a beerwink material, noting it would be S-rank if not for one tiny scratch. He then claimed it was a bad time for the protagonist to sell. His inventory, he lied, was already overflowing with identical items. With that, he had the nerve to offer 8,000 credits, acting as if it were a generous sum. Subaru, recalling its old value, almost thought the price was fair. But then Schneider appeared, announcing it was worth at least 15,000 and exposing the merchant's bluff. The 2 rivals stood, facing one another, the captain and the upstart. A tense greeting passed between them. Later, in a peculiar eatery, the 2 sat down to get straight to the point. They weren't there to make friends. You're kidding! This is your lunch spot? Subaru thought, but the captain had other things on his mind. When the topic shifted to the Thunder Dungeon, Subaru didn't hesitate to declare his plan. I'm clearing it alone. Schneider just scoffed, another rookie with a big head. The captain continued, countless hopefuls get taken down a peg on the 3rd floor. And you think I'm one of them? Subaru shot back. The captain admitted that he did. You have talent, I'll grant you that, he said, but you are nothing like the original. Subaru expected a quirky character, but this man was dangerously serious. That said, I have a proposition for you, the captain announced, his voice tight with tension. Grinding, he finally let his frustration show. Your arrogance is astounding. I'll give you one out. Go live, apologize, and we can move past this. But the hero simply smiled. I don't think that's a very appealing offer, Subaru replied coolly. The captain's eyes narrowed into slits. Fine. I'll just beat you in the tournament and put you in your place. It's a deal, Subaru agreed instantly. But when I win, you're writing a report for me. I want everything you know about that dungeon. It was a huge request. A mountain of work, for sure, but Schneider figured it was a small price for a victory he was certain of. As the captain walked away, Subaru knew the man hadn't spent 10 years there for nothing. Over at the entertainment company, the atmosphere was much more chaotic. Sean gasped, staring at the screen. Over 10,000 people are watching this live. He was glued to the tournament's opening broadcast, a pang of jealousy hitting him. It's so unfair. I can't even join since I'm already past the 3rd floor. Even though Subaru was their ally, Sean knew the logical bet was on the captain. But as a professional gambler, his gut told him to never follow the crowd. He had to bet on what he truly believed. The only problem was his nerves. He was trembling, terrified of making the wrong call. Right as he was about to switch his wager, a surprise call made him flinch and drop his phone. He'd accidentally locked in his bet on Subaru. Hatsuka, are you spying on me? He shouted. On the other end, she just asked innocently, what are you even doing over there? Sean tried to act casual, but his friend cut straight to the chase. We have to put everything on Subaru. It's a guaranteed win, she insisted. Have you lost your mind? He yelled back. You have to analyze these things. Sean snapped. Schneider is the rational choice, not your latest crush. Unfazed, Hatsuka proposed a new bet. Next month's salary says I'm right. But in the middle of their argument, a hooded figure passed by, and she lost her train of thought. Without another word, she hung up, leaving her friend completely bewildered. Sin stared at his phone. That was weird. She wasn't the type to make impulsive bets. Across the city, one of the captain's men asked, So what was the hero like? Schneider's face was grim. He's definitely not some amateur. The bald man worried. You don't think you could lose, do you? This earned him a furious glare. The captain was tempted to teach him a lesson. We'll settle it in the tournament. In his mind, though, there wasn't a shadow of a doubt. There is 0 chance I will lose. High above on a rooftop, a cloaked figure watched it all unfold. She had come to get a glimpse of the competition's fan favorite. It was Rena, of course, and she offered a quiet compliment for the boy's sister. At last, the day of the tournament dawned, and a massive crowd made its way to the Ordinero Coliseum. He stepped into the Coliseum, the roar of the crowd washing over him. As he emerged into the light, he saw the massive audience staring back. A wave of shock rippled through the stands. No one expected him here. They'd pegged him as a fun underdog, maybe a runner-up, but never the main event. His opponent, the captain, stood with a spear slung over his back, soaking in the cheers. Hundreds of voices chanted a single name, and it wasn't his. Schneider. They roared as fireworks lit up the sky. A poised woman appeared, then Mizuha from the Blue Zone Guild. She was the competition's presenter, and her voice silenced the arena. She outlined the tournament structure, from qualifiers to the grand finale. The prize, she announced, was a pair of shoes crafted by Hermes himself. A symbol of our guild's pride, she declared, and a legendary relic. It belonged to the great Hibiki Toshiya. With a flash of magic, she summoned the prize for all to see. He stared at them, making a silent vow. Just wait, Toshiya. I swear I'm bringing those home. From her seat, Hatsuka was his lone supporter. She hoped he'd give it his all. Yet, a mysterious hooded figure sat beside her. Hatsuka was certain it was the same person she had encountered before. With the tournament underway, the hero kicked off his live stream. Instantly, 3,000 viewers flooded in as he apologized for his absence. The chat moved so fast he could barely keep up. Just then, a mission from Hatsuka popped up. Win and earn 30,000 credits. Mizuha's voice boomed, "It's time!" And fireworks lit up the arena. She gathered a swirl of green energy in her palm, forming a massive sphere that hung in the air. With a dramatic flare, she made it burst, showering the arena in a magical glow. The entire stadium was bathed in an emerald twilight, day turning to night in an instant. In this enchanted darkness, the eliminations were set to begin. A system alert chimed, "Get disqualified and you're out." The round would conclude when only 1,000 survivors remained. With 10,000 participants, everyone was a rival. The hero planned to lay low and conserve his strength. But his fans had other ideas, sending a flood of donations for him to farm aura. Suddenly, a figure zipped past him. His first instinct was to run, knowing a direct fight would be trouble. But then he realized that opponent looked like a walking pile of prize money. In a flash, 1,500 players were already out of the running. The perspective shifted to the formidable captain, who was only interested in the hero. An arrow whistled past his ear, a surprise attack from a hidden challenger. But the archer wasn't alone. He had a whole team of mercenaries with him. One of them nervously suggested they shouldn't risk it. The leader, however, was overconfident in their numbers. Schneider simply smirked. Good plan, wrong target. The first mercenary charged forward, but before he could land a blow, he vanished. He was simply gone, leaving his teammates completely stunned. No one even saw the captain move his spear. Schneider wasn't interested in playing games. He'd seen crews like this before. He was ready to demonstrate what happens when you pick the wrong fight. With a single fluid motion, another mercenary was sent flying from the arena. "Tricks don't work in the tower," he announced, his voice echoing. "The only thing that protects you here is your own strength." His words left them frozen. This entire display of power was being broadcast to all the viewers. He carved through the remaining mercenaries with one clean sweep. High in the stands, Rena watched, recognizing that Captain was on a different level entirely. She figured he was destined to be a top-tier ranker. Her thoughts were interrupted by the noisy fan next to her. It was Hatsuka, cheering wildly for the protagonist's stream. Rena peeked over and saw Subaru's live feed on her screen. "You're a fan of the masked hero, too?" Rena asked, pointing to her own identical mask. Hatsuka's eyes lit up. "Totally! It's great to meet you." As the survivor count dropped to 1,300, the chat updated the hero. 97 eliminations so far, one comment read. With 200 credits per disqualification and time running out, a brilliant idea sparked in his mind. A wild idea sparked in his mind. Go loud, go big. Using his electrified sword, he felled the entire grove of trees, carving a crater where he stood to broadcast his location. The commotion reached the captain, who was just finishing up a skirmish. After dealing with the last of the mercenaries, he finally found the source of the racket. "Figured I'd find you here," the hero smirked. "I spotted you first, by the way." Schneider laughed. "Oh, we're settling that little score right now." A challenge flashed in the air, 10,000 credits for the hero to defeat the captain. Subaru readied his stance. With 202 players remaining, the endgame was on. Schneider moved first, hurling a spear with blinding speed. It missed, gouging a massive trench in the earth. "Don't worry," he called out. "We've got time." Subaru's confidence wavered. That attack was pure physical might. A single hit like that, and he'd be out of the game for good. And the spear's range was unbelievable. As the second one flew, the protagonist drew on the demon's sword, flooding his senses with power. His stats flared. He didn't just block the attack, he danced around it, closing the gap between them. But Schneider was relentless, a whirlwind of strikes. Subaru dodged again and again, but before he could counter, the next assault was already there. A final parry sent his opponent skidding backward across the ground. They stood apart for a moment. "Why hold back the thunder?" Schneider asked. The hero grinned. "What? And spoil the fun? Besides, this fight won't last that long." Schneider's eyes narrowed at the sheer arrogance. "You think you can beat me so easily? Are you trying to run out the clock?" he roared. To force the issue, the captain charged with everything he had, but the protagonist met him head-on. "Is that the best you can do?" Subaru taunted, his words like fuel on a fire. Suddenly, a chime echoed as the survivor count hit 1,000. The preliminaries were over. "This isn't finished," Schneider vowed. In the waiting room, the system announced a 30-minute intermission. A tremor ran through the protagonist's hands from the force of that final block. He'd seriously misjudged the captain's power. He remembered Hatsuka saying 10,000 live viewers was the threshold for going pro. Thanks to Schneider, he'd just smashed that goal. But his newfound fame felt hollow as a bigger problem loomed. He still had no idea how to clear this dungeon. Miles away, Chigor was having a crisis of boredom in his rustic cabin. He couldn't believe a powerhouse like Schneider was still on the 3rd floor. The lower the floor, the harder it is to punch up, he mused. Even with that thunder of his, Subaru's facing a wall. Then again, raw talent has a way of rewriting the rules. In the menu, the protagonist redeemed his earnings, sinking 80,000 credits to boost his greed bet skill all the way to level 5. It was now a formidable rank B ability. But since the upgrade was hidden from the public, his viewers were buzzing with curiosity. High in the stands, Mizuo watched it all unfold. With whispers of a thief in the air, a disguised Rina found the real mystery in the stands, facing someone who saw right through her. A stern warning echoed, "Do not interfere with the games." Just then, reinforcements from the guild made their entrance. Mizuo wondered who was in charge. It was none other than Kurokawa, arriving to assess the chaotic situation. Mizuo was baffled to see him on the 3rd floor. She cautiously asked if the guildmaster was displeased with Subaru. The answer was a definite yes, for both him and the formidable Schneider. But another problem was brewing, as Rina contemplated the immense power radiating from Hatsuka. She couldn't fathom why such a strong contender was present. To avoid suspicion, she dropped her disguise and introduced herself as Tom. Hatsuka, unfazed, noted her aura and her clever transformation technique. Intimidated, Rina wondered if this powerhouse was sent by Kazuki. Though Hatsuka preferred to stay uninvolved, she probed about any plans to disrupt the event. Rina, testing the waters, gave a vague maybe. In response, Hatsuka's aura turned menacing, promising severe consequences for any interference. Suddenly, the 30-minute break was over. Participants were whisked away to the finals, a high-stakes territory capture game. The rules were simple. Each player starts with a zone, and you can defend, hold, or steal more. Defeat an opponent, claim their territory. The player with the most zones wins the coveted shoes. With a color assigned to everyone, the final match ignited. Most players held back, planning to strike later for a bigger prize. But our hero, fueled by 300 credits per subscriber, had other plans. He instantly went on the offensive, capturing a zone with flair. His audience roared with approval. Meanwhile, the mighty Schneider abandoned a defensive stance as well, decisively seizing his first territory. A nearby player was frozen in fear, unable to escape his advance. In moments, Schneider had cleared out at least 10 competitors. He scanned the arena, his eyes searching for one person. Subaru! He spotted a cluster of yellow territories and knew he'd found his target. The world seemed to fade away as the two rivals locked eyes across the battlefield. But then Subaru turned his back and walked away. "Coward!" Schneider bellowed, his voice echoing in the arena. The hero's fans were outraged, but he calmly assured them he had a plan. Gotta farm more credits first, he thought, effortlessly taking down weaker opponents. He was almost disappointed by how easy the 3rd floor competition was. Then a new challenger stepped into his domain, a player named Dancho. It was the captain's imposing, bald-headed subordinate. "You're going to regret this," Dansu sneered, his chat lighting up with warnings that he was from the blue zone. Without another word, he lunged. Subaru raised his arms as if to block. But at the last second, he ducked, sliding beneath the attack. He came up behind his opponent, his move swift and precise. Ancho found himself completely outmaneuvered, his aggressive charge ending in an embarrassing whiff. The crowd gasped at the display of skill. Our hero had just turned the tables in a single, fluid motion. With a swift move, he sent Dancho sprawling to the ground. In the virtual arena, Subaru took his opponent out of the game. The move was so fast, viewers questioned if the other guy was even trying. Suddenly, Schneider stormed into the area, leaving no time to react. A warning flashed on screen, but the captain was already charging forward. Subaru dodged, parrying the spear that flew past his head. But the captain attacked again, roaring with intensity. "Use your thunder now," he yelled. "If you hold back, you're finished." The hero leaped back, creating some much-needed distance. As he gripped his sword, Schneider taunted, "What's the matter? Thinking of running?" "Not a chance," Subaru replied coolly. "I'm just giving you exactly what you asked for." He summoned his power, and arcs of lightning began to dance around him. His strength and resistance swelled, bolstered by an ability from a previous wager. Schneider watched in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. Subaru was forging a weapon made from pure, crackling lightning. "Do I still look like I want to run away?" the hero asked calmly. The captain had to admit he didn't, so Subaru pressed his advantage. "Maybe now you're the one who wants to make a run for it." But Schneider, fueled by his own intense convictions, refused to back down. He recalled a friend asking about his obsession with the Thunder Cave. He was already strong enough to move on, so why did he stay? Schneider hadn't had a real answer, only that some passions consume you. Whether it was conviction or fixation, he couldn't say for sure. But he knew that path would change his life, and that was all that mattered. Back in the arena, facing Subaru, he felt that same powerful drive. He spun his spear, realizing this boy was becoming his newest obsession. With a final cry, he charged, pouring everything into his last attack. In a show of respect for the captain's 10 years of effort, Subaru met the charge head-on. The two warriors clashed, unleashing every bit of strength they possessed. Their impact sent a massive shockwave through the arena, an explosion of pure energy. As the light faded, the captain's fierce purple aura had vanished. Only Subaru's brilliant yellow glow remained. In the audience, the girls were silent. Rina looked at Hatsuka with sudden suspicion, but the girl explained before being asked, "I'm here because I'm Subaru's manager. If there's trouble at the tournament," she continued, "it impacts his stream and my job." Rina's suspicion instantly transformed into childlike excitement. "You're really his manager?" she asked. Hatsuka beamed with pride. "It was tough convincing my colleagues that I'd discovered a true diamond," she confessed. Rina gushed, "I watch all of his streams." And the two quickly found common ground. Their chat was cut short by the massive explosion from the arena on the big screen. All attention was fixed on the screen, waiting for the smoke to clear. Hatsuka leaned in, her heart pounding with concern. When the view cleared, both fighters were still standing, but Schneider was badly damaged. The blast had carved a massive fissure through his digital form. He finally sank to his knees, out of the game, as Subaru wished they could meet again. Flash forward with 283 territories captured. Narukami Subaru was declared the tournament winner. More fireworks exploded overhead. The crowd was in a state of stunned celebration. Hatsuka turned to her new friend, but the hooded figure looked anything but happy. Rina couldn't process it. How could he have possibly claimed the grand prize? Mizuha stepped forward again. "Let's hear it for your champion, Subaru," she shouted into the microphone. With another gesture, she summoned the shoes, his hard-won prize. Rina shot up from her seat in a silent fury and stormed out of the arena. The magical seal around the shoes shattered and they settled into Subaru's hands. A wave of nostalgia hit him. It had been 20 long years. He remembered a day 2 decades ago when a young Toshio was fuming about his missing shoes. A classmate had teased him, wearing the tiny shoes on his own oversized feet. "I told you not to touch them," Toshio had yelled, landing a playful kick. The memory made him smile. Everyone had laughed, including him. Back in the present, the chat was buzzing. "He's a mercenary he should sell," one person wrote. But he simply shook his head. Mizuha, ever the host, looked puzzled. "Subaru, you could make millions." But he held his ground. "They're not for sale." Immediately, The crowd erupted with offers. Someone even shouted 4 million credits. In response, Subaru raised a hand, and a brilliant bolt of lightning cracked from the sky. The display of power left everyone speechless. "I wouldn't sell them," he said calmly. "Not even for 10 million credits." And with that, his point was made. He turned his back on the stunned arena and simply walked away. Elsewhere, in the city, Ammon and another player had just finished watching the broadcast. Ammon was speechless, unable to comprehend the protagonist's victory. "At this rate," said the player named Hanamaki Hyori, "he's going to become the real Subaru. Lately, people have been saying this new guy is even better than the original." Anamaki noted how much the two were being compared online. But to Ammon, it felt wrong. "This isn't natural," he muttered. "Someone is pulling the strings from behind the scenes." Hanamaki admitted she couldn't see the difference, but since Ammon disagreed, she mentally branded him a total fanboy. Shifting gears, she wondered aloud if her partner felt any excitement for the events ahead. He flatly dismissed it. They had one focus: intercepting the thief who was after the legendary shoes, and with that classic stoic charm, Amon purposefully strode away, leaving her to stand by herself in the middle of the buzzing crowd. Back on the live stream, everyone was losing their minds over that incredible pair of footwear, but for Subaru, simply reconnecting with Toshiya was a victory in itself. Snapping out of his thoughts, he thanked his audience for their mission support. The prize was a pair of boots called Teleria, which boosted the wearer's speed by 25% and their jump height by 15%. The chat erupted with opinions. Amidst the chatter, our hero got a private message from Hatsuka, giving him a heads up about a suspicious individual and telling him to stay sharp. Dri suddenly became aware of how out of place she must have looked, just lingering near the prize. She never wanted things to escalate this far, but she was out of options. In the perfect moment of distraction, her plan was to strike and take her target down. And that's where we'll leave it for now. If you're eager for the next chapter, be sure to ring that notification bell and join us again next time on TBS.